Renato.
How you doing?
Hey, good. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me on.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Yeah, it's great to meet you. Man, your work, I guess I'll just start like I often do. Your work is phenomenal.
Oh, thanks, Bud. I appreciate it.
Phenomenal. Yeah. Gosh, the thing I like about it is it's just it's different. It's there's a lot of landscape painters out there, but I don't know what you're doing. I'm excited to kind of figure out what it is that separates your work from other landscape painters I've had on because it's very different. So, but we'll
That's
get
the
into that.
question, I guess. It's
Yeah, I hopefully you have some thoughts on that because I'm really
well,
curious.
I guess, yeah. I mean, it's really, it's just, I guess, our individual voices, right?
Right.
It's like how a songwriter writes a song, right?
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
just
that's
what we
true.
see, what's important to us, what moves us, that sort of thing.
Okay,
So,
so then what I'm going to find out, I'm going to poke and prod until I figure out what your voice is. We will
sure.
define your voice today. That's what we'll put your yeah, literally put your
That's my
voice into
artistic
words.
voice. Yeah, yeah.
Well, tell me about yourself. So, how did you get into this? Tell me about, how it all started. Were you this way as a child? Were you creative as a child?
Yeah, yeah. It's I mean, I've been going at my thing here, my art, my passion since I've literally been a child. It's started kind of painting 8, 9 years old, probably a little earlier than that
Really?
anyway.
That
Oh yeah,
young?
yeah, 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 yeah. And lucky enough, my sister, she worked for an art store, a local art shop near my parents' place. And so she knew that I always loved to draw and stuff, so she'd bring me stuff home from the shop, paints and that sort of thing, and just kind of started doing my thing at that point. And I was lucky enough that I guess I had some natural abilities and a real kind of drive and desire to want to learn. And I mean, it was just kind of one of those things, right? It's you're good at something, you know it from a very young age, right?
Right.
So, and some people love music, some people love art, some people love whatever, right? And I was lucky enough to kind of know what my direction was going to be at that age, and I started taking it really kind of seriously, right? And was lucky enough to be able to start um, selling my work at the age of 10.
Get out of town.
Yeah. I was
What?
yeah at the same art store I was buying all my art supplies at, and
No
once
kidding.
yeah. So they
What kind of
were
what kind of prices were you getting?
well the first. Sorry, I'm all fidget. I'm kind of like just jammed into a corner here trying to get the light.
I know. Yeah,
The
yeah. Yeah, you
lights.
were so backlit before, so
Yeah.
you look like you were in the witness protection program or something.
Yeah. And um, sorry, your question again.
So what kind of money were you bringing in at
Oh,
10 years old?
my first painting, I believe, sold for $35, and this
Nah.
was in 1975.
Are you
So
serious? Whoa,
yeah,
whoa, 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 whoa. So you were born in 1965?
I was. Yeah.
Man, you look great, dude.
Why? Thank you. It's
Dang,
the
man. 60
yeah,
years old almost?
yeah. I'm gonna be 60 next May. So
Man, you're wearing it well. Good for you.
thank you. It's my parents' genes, right? So
Yeah. Can't take credit for it, right?
it's made it whole well, right?
So you're making 35 bucks in
Yeah,
1975
yeah, yeah.
on a painting. That's amazing. For a
Yeah.
10-year-old, even today, 35 bucks is pretty amazing.
You know what? And I mean, at that point, it was kind of like, you kind of got the taste of, um, the taste of selling your work, right? It's kind of like,
Yeah.
wow, this is okay, right? I can do this. I can live with this, right? And
So how did you get into the store? Did your sister just sort of was like,
yeah,
my
yeah, yeah.
son, my brother's a prodigy. You got to show him some of his work. Was
But
it?
you know what? Yeah, I was one of these guys. I was one of these kids that I just, as soon as I got my teeth into something, right? I would literally, I mean, I was literally in that store all the time, right? Just
Oh, they must have got a kick out of you at
oh,
10 years
I
old.
think they got kind of sick of me, right? So there's way too many questions, right? But you know,
Mm.
it was one of those things where it was just it came honestly, like I really just loved it, and yeah, and they, you know, they, I bring stuff in to get framed, and my sister would bring it in and say, I'll see if I can find a frame for this little thing. And then in the end, it was, you know, the owners were like, well, why don't you try putting something in the window, right? We'll put a little for sale sign on it. And
Hmm.
yeah, so,
That's great.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I've still got work. I've got one or two pieces still downstairs in my files of my work from, yeah, like 1976, 1977,
Oh
something
my
like
gosh, I wish I knew about that before the podcast. It'd be a
that.
trip
Yeah.
to see that.
Yeah, you know what? This, and this is really interesting because the painting was done in acrylics, and this is when I started kind of
But you
experimenting.
still work in acrylics a little bit, don't you?
I do, yeah, yeah,
Okay.
and I ended up doing it on a. My favorite thing to paint was, I mean, I paint on anything. Like just if I found it, I'm painting on it. But I used to take my mom's like department store boxes, right?
Mhm.
And they were usually smooth on one side, right, with whatever white finish they would put on it with their emblem, and then the other side was just plain cardboard. So I'd find a chunk that was just kind of white, right, and I'd paint on it, and you know, and it's just I'm astounded to this day because I mean those pieces of cardboard, they're still 100% completely intact. Like there's no acid burns, there's no, you know, it's falling apart, it's, you know, the chemicals that they do. I mean, it's quite astounding.
Interesting.
Yeah, yeah, and you know, every once in a while I'll go down there and just kind of take a look at it and look at the edges and just kind of see, you know, whether or not you know, it's still holding up, right? So
Well, that's good to know because I've got a few Russian and Ukrainian paintings on cardboard, and
yeah,
and
you
I
know,
was
just
like,
try to keep it out of the sun, right? You know, and
"Yeah,
you're
I
good,
guess."
sun and you're good. And yeah,
Huh.
yeah, it's you know, the whole archival thing, right? You know, this big
Yeah,
push
well,
for
I'm sure it's still not gonna well, maybe it will last 500 years. Wasn't it Toulouse-Lautrec that painted on cardboard? Am I
I
getting
think
that
so,
right?
yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and they're still
Co
okay. I've seen some of those in
coasters,
museums.
yeah, coasters, you know,
Yeah.
whatever. It's like, yeah. So, yeah, I think if you just take care of these things, they'll last, so,
Yeah.
you know?
So what about your parents? What was their role in your progress?
Oh, goodness. Besides chasing me around and yelling at me in Italian,
You got a great name for an artist, by the way.
why,
I always
thanks,
wished I was Italian. It
wow.
just Italian names just sound like artists because the Renaissance just sort of solidified that whole thing for you guys.
Yeah, my mom and dad were fantastic people. You know, they're just salt of the earth type people. You know, immigrants to the country, and you know, had
Oh, you're
no.
first generation American?
A Canadian, yeah, first gen, yeah,
No kidding. Oh, wait, you're in
yeah.
Canada.
I'm in Canada. Yeah, I'm on the west
Oh,
coast,
okay. What part of
BC,
Canada?
just outside of Vancouver,
Oh, no
right,
kidding.
like right on the west coast. Yeah,
Oh, okay. Great.
yeah, yeah. No, it's one of the most beautiful places on the planet to live. One of the most expensive too, but you know, it's you're gonna live in if you're gonna live in a place, BC is definitely, you know, high on the list. So
So what
it's
brought your parents to Canada from
you know
Italy?
what that my actually my aunt and uncle. It was one of those things where my dad immigrated first, and his sister and her husband had moved here just before. I think it was a year or two before. So they sponsored my parents or my dad to come to the country,
Mhm.
right? To basically get himself set up, get things figured out, and you know, basically get started, get a job, and that sort of thing. So, and that's, you know, that's half my family. Was very interesting because half the family ended up in Cincinnati, Ohio, of all
Hmm.
places, and the other half ended up here. So I feel like I got, you know, got the good card on that one, right?
Yeah. But do you
Right.
ever
So,
wish you still lived in Italy?
you know, yeah, I mean, yeah, it's Italy is it's an amazing place. It's just an entirely different culture, and I mean, I'm pretty lucky that a lot of these traditions have been kind of instilled in me by my parents, right? So I mean, I kind of live my life kind of that way, minus the environment, right? And but yeah, I mean, I think for me, it's time to get over there again before I'm too old to travel, kind of thing, right? So
Mhm.
I've got relatives that still, they go there every year. Their families have left them properties in the village that my parents grew up in. It's like an 11th century village,
Wow.
mountain village. Like, I mean, we're Italian hillbillies, right? This is kind of the reality of my parents' upbringing, right? So lived way up in the mountains. I think at one point maybe a couple of thousand people lived in the village at one point, and now it's like 9 or 10. That's it. That's like full-time residents. That's it. And
Man.
yeah, so I mean, it's basically just dissolved to nothing, right? And but lucky enough, a lot of the relatives, families, they've been left these properties, and they've gone in, they've made them summer homes and that sort of thing. So I've got family that still travel there during the summer months and spend a few months. So I think if I needed to go and have a place to stay, it would definitely be doable. So
You speak Italian?
I do. Well, I do. It
You can
kind
get
of
by a little bit.
well, yeah, no, no. It goes in, understand everything fluently,
Really?
fluently.
But you can't
Yeah,
speak it that well.
it just doesn't come out. It
No
gets cracked.
kidding.
It's weird.
Boy, that Canadian accent, sir, comes out.
Well, does it?
You just said out, out. Yeah.
Out.
Out.
Uh,
I don't am I doing that right?
I guess so.
Out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's. I'm sure if I kind of put my head to it, put my mind to it, I could probably pick up the speaking language pretty quickly. So
Well, the reason I wonder is because I got some neighbors that I guess Italy's doing this thing where they are selling property at next to nothing to people,
yeah,
and then in exchange for you fixing it up, and they got this great house for 50 grand
yeah.
in this beautiful historic village, and they're spending about 200,000 fixing it up. It's, like,
Yeah.
insane, I'm so jealous.
Well, it's pretty amazing. Yeah, the Italian government has really kind of instilled this wanting to bring back money into the country, right? And
Mhm.
there's a lot of people, a lot of these places, like I was just describing, where families have aged, died, and left, right? And the kids have grown up and they've just gone and looked for better lives outside of these towns that they were raised in. And I think Italy's suffering because of it, right? And they can only survive on tourism. Certain areas, right, can only survive on tourism. During certain times of the year, and what they need is a population that is injecting money into the economy full time, right? So,
Mhm.
and it's a great deal. And if you've got the ability to just kind of move, and you're in a position in your life where you can do that, well, there's no better opportunity than
Yeah, it's wild.
there. I mean, where else would you want to move, really, right? I
I
mean,
mean, I know it sounds
seriously,
amazing. I'm
seriously,
not much of a traveler, I'd consider it, but I'm such a homebody. I just
yeah.
yeah, creature of habit. I'm just happy
I
to go to my same bed every night.
I'm exactly the same way.
Yeah.
Just you know what I yeah it's I like my routines and that sort of thing.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
Alright, so back to your parents. So,
Yeah.
did they encourage you to do art then as you were growing up?
Um, they did and they didn't. They had really no experience when it came to art, right? They were never exposed to it, and I mean, I think they appreciated the fact that I had these abilities as a kid, and they were always really, they were really proud of me, and always kind of, you know, would get me to get my art and show their friends, and right, when we'd have visitors and stuff, and it was always embarrassing for me, at the time, but proud parents, right? Did they ever, you know, did they ever see me making a career out of being an artist? No. Did they want me to? Definitely not. They would have been more than happy if I would have taken up trades, which I did, when I was younger, and which I mean, it serves me now in certain aspects of being an artist, and frame building, and stretching canvases and building crates and all that kind of stuff. it all kind of came into, it's all coming back to play now, right? So, but yeah, to answer your question, yeah. Did they support me? Yes, they did. They gave me money, go buy supplies, keep yourself busy,
Right.
right?
But they were
Yeah.
hoping you'd choose something more practical.
Be a cement mason like my dad, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So,
That's
but
exactly my story.
yeah,
Great. Totally
yeah,
encouraging. You're the best. Like you're talented, but please don't do this. Don't screw
yeah,
up your life kind of thing.
yeah, yeah. Don't, yeah, exactly, right? I mean,
Yeah.
and it's just, it's fear and what have you, for
Yeah.
your children's well-being, right? It's
Oh,
you
if they
want to
believe it, then it's good parenting. If they genuinely believe you're going to screw up your life, then they should be telling you don't
another
screw up
job,
your
right?
life.
Oh,
Yeah.
really awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
we did that here. But yeah, so
Hmm.
painting from a young age,
So
painting from
how did you Okay, well, it sounds like you had a intermediate career.
I did, yeah.
Okay, so tell me about that path. Well, first of all, where did your education start? Did you take classes in high
I'm
school
I
or
am completely self-taught.
100%?
100%. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I,
Um,
I did, of course, I did the art class. I mean, these were, when you're signing up for your electives in high school, right? It was kind of like, yeah, art. Right? Art was the first on the thing, right, on the list of things that you wanted to take, and yeah. So yeah, I mean, I did my art classes, very very basic fundamentals in high school. I had a great teacher in high school, Mr. Glenn, great guy, had a ton of, encouraging things to say, and always kind of believed in what I was doing. But he's a high school teacher, right? And he's teaching hundreds of kids a day. And so, there's only
right,
so much energy you can put into one particular student.
right.
Elementary school was different because I had one teacher, and I always give her the shout out when I do interviews because she was just a wonderful woman. And this was my grade three teacher, and Mrs. Rosemary Mack. She ever sees this. Thanks, Rosemary. Um, she was a super supportive woman. Like she really, really was. She was this young teacher, and I was this just super hyper kid that really loved to paint. And everybody would be painting, suns and stick people, and I'd be doing vases, still lives with flowers, and this was in grade three, and she would go and buy me stuff, and she'd buy me some supplies, and always kind of uh, always made sure that 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 love and drive was being facilitated by things that I could use to kind of further my creative explorations as a kid, right?
Hmm,
So yeah,
that's great.
yeah. So
Hmm.
good
Yeah,
teachers, gotta love them, man. They're important, right?
yeah, my 3rd grade teacher, I had a major crush on. You got me bringing that back when you mentioned 3rd grade teacher. She's probably like 90 now or
Great,
something.
well, yeah, yeah. It's yeah, it's one of those things, right? The
That
importance of that one or two real specific people in a kid's life, right? And
Mhm.
it's usually in school, right? And they're really lucky, and they're able to get a really solid teacher that stands behind them and understands them. Yeah, I mean, it shapes their lives, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, you went into, what kind of trade after high school?
I started, I was, again, lucky enough, had a really great teacher in grade 12. She was a super cool person. And she was teaching uh, kids who had hearing disabilities. And we used to go hang out in her classroom because she was just really cool. And she would always, it was a place to go and skip out and learn sign language. And so we go out there, and I was getting close to finishing high school, and she's like, "Well, my husband is a contractor, and I will occasionally um, get him to hire some of the students, right? And usually he would hire students who had hearing disabilities and just kind of give them the um, the tools to kind of start their lives with trade, right?"
Mhm.
Uh, so, but she said, "Well, I'll talk to him and see if he's got a position for you, and you can maybe go work for him." And so I did, and I was framing and building houses for the better part of 2 years, and learned some really important skills, like really important skills, when it came to building, basic building, and ended up doing a full reno on my house 10 years ago, and like literally, applied everything that I had learned then to that. And then from there went and got a job for the Bank of Montreal, which is a major banking institution here up in Canada. Kind of bounced around internally there and for the better part of 7 years. And at that time, I was still working at, it's just a little studio that I was working from. And I started bringing work into the office and stuff and showing people and putting a portfolio together. Um, and this was just around the time that wildlife art had become a really big thing with reproduction, right? Like print art. Robert Bateman and Carl Brenders and all those guys were starting to monetize their work through limited edition prints, right?
What
So,
year would this have been approximately?
oh man,
90s or something, or
yeah,
80s?
very, very late 80s, very early 90s, like
Okay.
right behind me, right there, is one of my first wildlife pieces that I did in 1991. And it was the first published piece I did. And I kept the original, but I was starting to sell work through, to people in the office, and decided to kind of experiment with doing some limited edition Cibachrome prints, right? And it was just doing runs of 10, and they weren't cheap to do, and they weren't easy to do just because it required getting a photographer and doing color separations and all that kind of stuff. And found that I managed to sell the first 10 prints immediately, and put a good chunk of change in my pocket. Um, and then really kind of started dialing in on what was happening on the commercial market, which was the whole print thing. I mean, this was a big thing back then. And so I decided, okay, well, let's start really focusing on maybe putting a decent piece together, and seeing if we can get a print out of it. And I managed to cross paths with the right people at the right time, and got connected to an art distributor through a friend of mine. Right. Yeah, I've told this story a bunch of times, but um, I I still restore cars, but I was restoring a car, and I was frequenting a buddy's shop of mine who sold supplies. So Paul, um, he's always been a huge advocate of what I've done, and he kind of watched my career kind of grow over the years and stuff. And um, so he his banker had a son who was in the art print market in Toronto on the east coast of Canada. And Paul was like, well, I should really maybe connect the two of you, and see whether or not you guys can, kind of get together, and maybe work together. So he set up this meeting. I talked to his mother, and his mom was like, yeah, okay, he's coming out to do some business here in the West Coast at this time. So why don't you come on over and bring one of your paintings so we can see it? So I did, and got there, met him, and was very kind of uptight, and he didn't show his cards. And he says, well, let's see what you got. So I pulled the painting out and plopped it in front of him, and it wasn't quite done yet. And he just kind of went quiet.
Oh
And
gosh.
yeah, and I was like, oh, look, what is this? Right? Excuse my language, I promise to keep this clean. I just was like, oh, that's not good. And he just kind of looked at me and he said, yeah, I think we can work together. And
What?
that, and that was it. Right. And that was
No,
it.
that guy knows how to play it.
Well,
Jeez.
yeah. And I mean, sure. I mean, yeah, I mean, it was, at that time, it wasn't like, okay, we're going to back you, we're going to finance you, you're going to do all this stuff. He's just like, okay, when you're ready, when you've got prints ready to sell, come and talk to me. Right. So, yeah,
I envy people like that.
yeah,
If
exactly.
I'm, like, looking at a
Or,
house or, like, a building I'm interested in and it's really cool, the real estate agent will be there and I'll be like, "Oh my gosh, this building's amazing," and I can just see I know the dollar signs are just running through this
yeah,
guy's head, but I can't
yeah,
help it. I'm
yeah,
so enthusiastic. And
yeah.
I know people like that who are just playing it cool, and I'm like, "I wish I had that."
Yeah, I think, yeah, he was very cool about it. I'm sure, guys like that get hit up by artists all the time, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so yeah, I ended up, having to go into the whole, um, figuring out how to do these prints. I mean, prints today are very, very different than they were back then.
Oh, yeah. Did you do those big slides? What were they
Yeah,
called? Like, 4 by 5s? It was
four
a
by
4.
fives, yeah. So,
Yeah.
you basically go to a photographer and, he shoots it, puts it to slide, color separations. From that point, then you got, a pressman, a colorman, right? These guys,
So
everything was done.
complex.
Yeah, it was so complex, right? It wasn't just, press a button and you had prints. It was, okay, we need to run 2,000 sheets to bring this thing up to color, right? To make sure. And then you're sitting there looking. I mean, I was a 27-year-old kid, I had no experience. This was all new to me. I mean, they could have, put garbage in front of me and I would have said, yeah, that's excellent, right? Um, but they're really good about it, and but it was a big expense, and it was you had to have capital going into this thing, right?
Yeah.
And I ended up getting my 500 prints, right? And then basically starting from that point, and it was at that time it was kind of like knocking on doors, and this is what these guys did. They would just go gallery to gallery, pick up the phone, make some calls. There was no email. There was none of this. Zero. This was like, feet on the ground. They earned their keep, right? And
Mhm.
so, lucky enough, we sold out our first 500 prints in like 45 days, right?
Wow.
Yeah,
That's insane.
yeah, yeah. It was fantastic. Again, very lucky, right? Everything just kind of fell into place as it should have, and yeah. So I ended up doing, I believe, six prints, six different images over the years.
Mm.
And I believe it was in 1996 when the whole digital movement kind of started,
Was it
right?
really that far back?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, digital started in the late 90s, mid to late 90s. And I think I still actually have my first digital camera, my Olympus digital camera, which was like, oh, I just gotta get my hands on this thing, right? This is technology.
Yeah.
Literally 1.5 meg files. That was as big as it shot at the time, right?
Wow. I'm trying to
Yeah,
think when I had my first camera. I had a Canon Rebel that was 6 megapixels. So,
yeah. I mean,
obviously you were ahead of me on the
oh yeah,
tech.
like I was the first in line when I saw it, and it was kind of like, this is fantastic. But
1
at
megapixel.
that
That's
point, yeah,
hilarious.
1.5 meg or something like that,
I
right?
thought
It's
6 was
ridiculous.
ridiculously small. I was like, "What am I supposed to do with this?"
Yeah, 48 right there.
Isn't that
48 megs. Yeah,
crazy?
that's nuts.
I
Yeah.
often wonder if young artists realize how good they have it. I mean, we all have it good. So it's not like they have it easier
Everybody,
than us. We all have it good now, but
well, I mean, it's definitely it. This sort of technology definitely comes with its, costs, right? Because yeah, yeah, when you've got raw information or basic information, like some of my best reference photos that I've ever shot, and I still go back to them today, were shot on my BlackBerry. Like,
really.
I don't even think it shot a 1 meg file. Like, they're horrible photos, but
But your work is so clear and tight.
well, I think what it is as a reference point, it's like the simpler it is, the better it is, right? Like people, especially people who paint in kind of realist styles, right? I mean, they, um, they get caught up in all the details, right? They're just looking at the details. They're not looking at the basic fundamentals of a painting, right? And you can just be consumed by what you're seeing on the screen and everything. All of these new cameras and image shooting technologies are so advanced that and AI on top of it, right? I mean, you've got a camera that's thinking for you, right? It's thinking in the sense of what would make this image better than it actually is, right? And really kind of pulling the truth out of the image itself, kind of the life of the photo or the life of the scene that you're trying to shoot.
Yeah.
And it's very noticeable with a lot of young artists because you can see it. It's like, yeah, no, they reference their photo like right to the T, right? They're allowing
Mhm. Yeah.
technology to dictate to them how they're going to paint. For
Yeah.
me, just it's the bare bones of what I need to create a piece of work that I'm happy with without being completely inundated with all of these really kind of unimportant details. Those
Mm.
details come in at the very end of my work, right? And they're just
Yeah.
until the point, man. It's making marks, putting big blocks of color down, right? Getting it
Mhm.
all right, getting that foundation as solid as possible before you build the house on it, right? And it's
Yeah.
like anything else, right? Get the you know get the nuts and bolts of that thing together and where you need it to be before all of those little tiny details that are kind of consuming your brain when you're looking at a computer screen, um, kind of get put into play, right? So
I agree with you 100%. But what I think the big advantage of living today, you sort of addressed it, is in an instant. I mean, I can photograph my work and I can have it online in 5 minutes.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
I can my wife is a beekeeper. And
Really, eh?
yeah, she's so great. We have so many bees and we have like gallons of honey every 6 months. It's crazy. But
Send
so she's part of this whole club in Salt Lake City and I designed a logo, or not really a logo, but a t-shirt for them. And it's like you'd expect. I gave them the logo and I said, "Okay." And I actually mocked it up on a shirt, but it was the wrong brand. So they wanted to go with a different brand t-shirt. So they mocked it up again on a different brand t-shirt. And this t-shirt comes back and the thing is huge. It's so not proportioned well on the t-shirt. And I'm like, "Man, you like I did everything to make this look good and you guys still screwed it up." You know? But here's the point. Nowadays, I was like, "Jen, don't worry about it. I'll just take the logo and I'll buy you a t-shirt. It's just a single one-off t-shirt. It's still only like 15 bucks. You don't even have to buy a whole batch of them anymore."
yeah,
It's crazy. It's
yeah,
like, and she's like, "Oh man, it looks so big. It looks stupid." I'm like, "Yeah, it looks ridiculous, but let's just spend 15 bucks and I'll buy you another one. Just one t-shirt." It used to be like with your prints, you got to buy
yeah,
500 of them and
yeah.
go through months of work just to get the whole thing done.
Absolutely, absolutely. I
It's
mean,
crazy what we can do now with
it's
business.
what we're able to do. Yeah, as far as the creative um, um, people, right? And if you're selecting to be, someone who paints, builds widgets, does whatever, right? I mean, it's just literally so easy now.
Oh man, it's wild.
Too easy, too easy.
Yeah.
In my, personal opinion. I mean, I figure, you walk through the fires a bit, right? And just get a real sense of, you know, what it takes or what it took, to get to a point where today it's literally hit a button and you're off to the races, right?
See, I have a
So
little bit different perspective. It's the same but different. I feel like we had a little bit of an excuse back in the 80s and 90s to be somewhat mediocre. You know what I mean? Because, if I wanted to learn how to, let's say, fiberglass, like you say you restore cars,
yeah,
maybe there's a need to learn how to do fiberglass. It used to be in the 80s you'd have to find someone to teach you, spend days in the library looking for books on how to do it, which were probably non-existent, if not
yeah,
rare, at least, right? And you may never figure it out, right? Nowadays, you just hop on YouTube and you're an expert in 5 minutes. It's like
well,
not literally,
that's
but the point is, it's
yeah,
all out there, and there's no
yeah.
excuse for mediocrity anymore. It's like,
Well, well, there is though, and that's laziness, right?
well, that's what I'm. No, that's not. That's what I'm saying. There's no excuse. It's like if you're mediocre now, it's because you're not trying.
Yeah, and that's just it.
Yeah,
And back to your point, right? If you didn't find something, if you didn't find a book or something back in the day, right? Scouring the library on how to do something, you didn't do it. Well, this is the difference: is that you can. Because, and this has always been my approach to anything. I always, and, it's like if one man can do it, one person can do it, so can you. It's just a matter of figuring out how, right?
totally my attitude. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like I look at some of the greatest painters in history, right? And it's like they were able to do it. They were flesh and bone. They were mortals, right? They just had a system of thinking and experience when it came to how they painted, that they've learned. They probably learned it from somebody else by observation, through trial and error, all of these things, right? And I've always just kind of looked at life the same way, right? And I tell young painters, it's like, man, yeah, just do, right?
Yeah.
It's you can sit there and Google search and YouTube, whatever, all day long, and unless you are, and you may have a brain full of information and opinions about everything, but unless you've put the time in to actually mix paint, put it on a canvas, suck over and over again at doing just that until you don't suck at doing it because
Yeah.
you've put hours in learning, right? And experiencing failures that shape who and what you are. Right? I mean, it all goes back to to the like basic fundamentals. And yeah, we have got the ability to educate ourselves in an instant. Like right now, I want some information on whatever, right? Pigments, kid, and
It's
there you
so
go.
great. It's so
It is
great.
great.
I
It
almost
is
feel like a
great.
fraud because it's too easy anymore.
Well,
So
it's
what you're saying is, I mean, it's not easy, obviously, but
yeah,
compared to 30 years ago, and so I had a handyman business. What you're saying reminds me of this, and I'm sitting here with a grin on my face as you're talking because I'm thinking about this, and
yeah,
I'm thinking how crazy I was. So when I first moved to Utah, I'm originally from New York. My wife and I met in Utah, but we were both from New York. We ended up going home, dating, coming back, and I needed to figure out what to do for work. And I lived in a basement apartment of someone I'd met when I previously lived in Utah, and it wasn't even a basement apartment. It was a one bedroom, and we had our own bathroom, but that's about it. And they said, "Look, you can live here if you kind of work on our basement, do some stuff in our basement because the rest of it wasn't finished." And
yeah,
I was good with my hands because my dad was good with his hands, and I was raised with tools, but I really didn't know a lot. I just was good with my hands. I mean, as most artists are. So I'm like, and I told them that. So I'm like, sure, I'll figure it out. So I spent tons of time in the library trying to figure out how to drywall, how to frame, how to do electrical. I mean, I didn't pull a permit or anything. It was terrible. How to, and then I'd spend time on the phone with my dad. Dad, I got to wire this up. What am I doing? You know, figured it out. And then my landlord's like, you should do a handyman business. This is a rich neighborhood. You could probably be busy all the time. I'm like, yeah. I'll tell you what, dude, it was so funny. I mean, I don't know where I get this from, but it's the same attitude you described. It's like, if that guy can do it, I can do it, you know?
absolutely. Yeah,
And I remember one time a guy said, I went there and I was only 22, 23 years old and I looked like I was 16. But I was just handing out flyers in this rich neighborhood, basically saying I can do anything. And I can't do anything, but I believed I could. And
that's
so this guy
half the
calls.
battle. You believe you can do it, right?
It's all what you believe, right? Fake it till you make it. So this one guy, there were tons of stories like this, and none of them failed for thank goodness because I was unwilling to fail. But there was this one guy who hired me because I told him I could do it. And he said, I need my basement remodeled. I need everything done, all the basics, the framing, the sheetrock, the drywall, the carpentry work. But I also need a full room of cabinets. Um, I was like, "Oh, and a really nice high-end, um, desk that matches the cabinets." He's like, "Can you do this, or do you know anyone else who can do this?" I'm like, "I'll do it." And I'm living in 1 bedroom with a bathroom. I don't even
Yeah,
have a shop. I have nothing. I have no all I have is a circular saw, and a couple of drills, maybe a hammer, you know? So
yeah,
he gave me money. I said, "Yeah, I piece of cake," you know? He gave me he gave me $6,000 down. I didn't make enough on this, by the way. I didn't know it at the time, though. I did too ignorant, you know? But he gave me $6,000 down. I went to Home Depot and bought a contractor table saw and everything. I spent the entire thing on tools and then spent $100 on a storage unit that had 1 outlet. And I spent 16 hours a day in that storage
Plugging,
unit.
unplugging, yeah.
Yes, plugging
From
and
tools to
unplugging
tools.
stuff. It had one
Yeah,
light bulb. It had one light bulb,
yeah.
right? And I used to I shouldn't say this online. I had to use a bucket as a bathroom to make it
Oh,
happen. Yeah,
no.
not bad, not good, right? But what am I gonna do? I'm there 16 hours.
Yeah.
Dude, I
So
pulled it off. These
those old
cabinets were
stories.
pristine. They were pristine, but it took me so long because I wasn't willing to settle for less than perfect. So of course I had to do things over again a few times. The desk was just inlaid, mint, like dovetails, the whole nine, and and but it was crazy. It was like so much freaking work because I spent tons of time in the library, from the storage unit to the library, from the storage unit to the library, just trying to figure out how cabinets were put together. Turns out I made them more like furniture than cabinets because I didn't use screws. I did all wood joinery. I found the wrong books.
But did you? But
Yeah,
did you,
but
right?
did I?
You
But
know?
now I can make furniture, you know? Is it just me or the rest of you guys also get weirdly excited when you order new paint? Because I don't know about you, but when I get paint in the mail, it feels like Santa just dropped my Christmas presents off at my doorstep. With Vasari paint, my paint of choice and the podcast sponsor, it's even more exciting. And let me show you why. Because when Vasari shows up, it comes in this incredible box where each tube lays in this little compartment perfectly formed around the tube in this nice soft foam. And it's surrounded by velvet, red velvet. Now you got to ask yourself, if a paint comes so carefully protected and surrounded by red velvet, you got to wonder if this paint is worthy of royalty. It is. Vasari is. So if you haven't tried Vasari, you're seriously missing out. And the thing about Vasari, it's not only the best paint out there, it's also made by an incredible company that's been around for 30 years and knows its customer by name. Do yourself a favor, go to VasariColors.com and order yourself some for your next painting. But anyway, it's just anyway, to your point, it's like I had that same attitude. If someone else can do it, I can do it. And fortunately, I never screwed up someone's house. Um,
Well,
but
burn
that
it
went
down.
on for a couple years, and I put myself through college. Well, my wife, of course, worked too, but it's true, man. If you put your mind to it, there's nothing you can't learn. But nowadays, I don't have to spend hours in the library. I just pull up my phone if I don't know what to do. If I'm
Well, and
stuck in that storage unit and I'm like, oh, I don't know what joint to use here, I'll just pull up it on my phone and watch a couple YouTube videos, and start making the joint, you know?
it, having information is great, but
Yeah.
having to apply the information to what
Oh,
you're
it's
doing,
critical. Yeah.
that's critical, right? I mean, if you're not willing to,
And the confidence to do it, because some people are can't people.
yeah. Well, and you know what? And this is, and I'm sure every artist out there will attest to this, but having the confidence, having the drive, we do it. I mean, I can only speak for myself here, but I mean, I've been in this biz, I've been a career artist now for 40 plus years, right? Long time. And still feel like I don't have the confidence. I still have the drive though, right?
That I
And
don't believe you, though. There's a difference. So, like, okay, let me
there,
ask you
no,
this.
I am one of my worst critics, and to the point of to a fault, in the sense where I will literally let myself doubt bog me down, where I will not paint. I just get so angry at myself for failing in that sense, right? But it's just literally a state of mind. That
Yeah,
being said,
but okay. There's this interesting contradiction in my mind, and I would suspect you have the same thing going on in your mind. And I don't know the vocabulary to define it, frankly. But with me, I have this unbelievable sense of I can do anything the next guy can do. If it can be done, I can do it. Right. But then at the same time, I hate my work. Like, it's like, oh, I'd rather look at anyone else's but my own. It's this weird contradiction of insecurity and confidence at the same time.
absolutely, it's confidence and drive and passion, right? Passion. It's just
Right, but
you.
that's what I mean by you have confidence. You wouldn't be here if you didn't have some self-confidence. But
Yeah. I
yet
mean,
but at the same time, self-critique.
maybe it's just ego driven. Who knows, right? It's just one of
Yeah.
those. where you want to prove to yourself that you can do it, right? And ultimately, that's what it boils down to for me. It's not what my collectors think. It's what I think, right? It's like I'm happy with that. I feel like I've brought myself up to a new level, right? And when you feel like you're stuck in this kind of, you know, purgatory of creativity where things just aren't really changing, right, one way or another, and I start getting very angry at myself because it's like, why is it that I can't figure this out, right? It's like
But
I
you
know that you,
keep doing it.
but I do because I'm stubborn. It's my Italian. It's my
So maybe
Italian.
stubborn is it. Okay,
Yeah.
but haven't we've all met people, and I'm not gonna embarrass anyone, but I have someone very important in my life who drives me nuts because of this. This person is a can't person,
Is it
and
what? Sorry, a cat?
a can't,
Oh, I can't. Okay.
C-A-N-T, can't person. I'm a can person, C-A-N, right? And I'm constantly telling this person, "Oh my gosh, stop saying you can't. There's
Yeah.
nothing you can't do." And they're like, "No, I literally can't do that." I'm like, "Oh, it drives me crazy." I'm like, "Yes, you can." They
Yeah.
said, "No, I can't." And then if they try something once and fail, they're like, "See, I told you I can't." And they never do it again. Right. And to me, that's lack of confidence. It's like, come on. A confident person will try and try and try. And when they fail, they'll say, "Well, yeah, it sucks that I suck, but I'm not gonna suck. I'm not gonna give up here until figured this thing out." And there's some I don't know how you define it. Maybe confidence not the right word, but when I think of someone who's truly insecure, I think of someone who's like, "See, I can't. I tried it. I failed. I can't. Never doing it again." You know,
It,
that's a real lack of confidence, which is
it's
unfortunate.
power. Yeah, it's the power of self-suggestion, I guess. Really,
Yeah.
it's poisoning your own. You're poisoning your own well just you know, by thinking that way, right? And but it's the unfortunate reality of a lot of creatives, right? They just
Yeah.
it's tough. It's tough. I mean, as artists in any medium, period, right? I mean, we've always just been kind of treated a certain way throughout history, and it's not easy, right? It's just not easy, and it's just the way that we're hardwired as well, right? I mean, we are critical, and we think different, we feel differently about what we do, and it's very personal, right? So, but getting back to the I can't, I mean, it's you choose to not, right? It's just that simple. You want to believe that you can't, then you won't, and
Right.
it's really just a matter of, yeah, you can, because you know what? If I can, then so can you, right? Why isn't it that you can't? I mean,
Yeah, if you got all your limbs, you got your
yeah,
brain. I mean, unless you're mentally ill in some way, your mental disabilities. If you got all your limbs and you got you
well,
can
and this
do
is
it.
it. Yeah, I mean, if you're given all the tools, right, and
Yeah.
just these are it, right? It's hands, eyes, and ears, man. These are they don't even need the ears,
Not
and
for what we do. Yeah.
no, no, and it's all there. It's just a matter of, yeah, just what you have to be willing. Have to be willing to do is endure the endure the feeling of
Sucking.
failure, right? Of failure, man. It's
Yeah.
like, yeah,
Over
this is
and
it,
over
right? And
and over
over and over
again.
and over again, right? Until you look at it and you go, for one, you go, well, shit, that wasn't as bad as I thought it was, right? You give it some time, separate yourself from these failures a bit, and then you look at them again and you think, well, okay, well, it wasn't as bad as I imagined it to be. And those failures have served me as being something really positive in kind of my today life as an artist, right? I kind of, I've tried different genres of work, and all of them have really served me well. I mean, I've been very good at some of what I was painting at the time, but it literally all served me in a sense that it's gotten me to where I am today as a painter, right?
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. Anyways,
Um,
yeah.
yeah. Not to be a total space case here, because this is a really great conversation, but are you in your studio right now?
I'm not. No, I'm just in my office. My studio's downstairs.
Okay, because
So
'cause I'm like, "You got carpet in there, and it looks so clean." I'm like,
I
"It can't be
have
your
it
studio."
downstairs too. you know what? My studio is a bit of an operating room. I'm pretty, I'm a very,
Oh, I noticed that. You were
not a
li
super tidy guy, but
your
yeah,
palette was a freaking palette knife.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, we need to talk about that. That's wild.
yeah.
Alright, so this is good. This is really interesting conversation, this whole idea of confidence, and there's gotta be better, better definitions for this weird contradiction between constantly beating yourself up and yet never being willing to quit because you believe you can succeed.
Yeah.
There's gotta be a word for that beside I don't know what it is, but it's a strange
Drive, man. It's
thing.
drive,
Is it just drive?
drive. Yeah, it's drive. And I mean, I can only, again, speak for myself here, but it's when you go through life and you realize that you pretty much stuck at everything else you do except for being creative, right?
Right.
um, that drives you to be, and that's where you excel, that's where you shine within a crowd, right? Or within your peers and stuff, right? You're good at that one thing, and it for me, it just, yeah, I mean, it's just a natural thing to want to be creative, but also it's a natural thing to want to excel, to be the very best I can be, right? And I mean, this sounds like a stupid, some sort of mantra, but I mean, it really is, right? And it's
Yeah.
important. It's really important to kind of keep your head together as a painter, because it's easy to let the demons in there and just kind of mess with things
Mhm.
and really kind of derail you, right? So,
Mhm.
yeah. Anyways,
Hmm. Alright, so let's go back to your history a little bit. So you were working at the bank, you brought some paintings to the bank, and then, and then you did this whole print thing.
yeah,
Correct me
yeah,
if I'm getting the order wrong. You sold 500 prints. You did that 5 more times? 5 more times?
yeah, 5 more times, yeah,
Okay.
and
When did you switch to a full-time painter, period? Not selling p
yeah, at the time, it was, after doing those first series of prints, I think it was like 2, and then, I had kinda decided that, I was going to, take a leap into the deep end and give up my job and focus on, painting full time, and I did, and at the time, I had gotten married, and, shortly thereafter, we had a baby, and, so, the stresses of life, right, kind of set in. And unfortunately, we were together for a while, and the marriage didn't work. And now suddenly it was like, okay, well, I've got a child to support and family to worry about here. And so I decided, because I, at the time, I was still a young guy, I was in my late 20s, early 30s. And I just, I just felt like I just wasn't grown up enough, right, to kind of juggle and being responsible enough to be, a full-time artist, career artist, making enough money to raise a family, and or supporting the family and that sort of thing. So, I decided to go back to work, and then just worked odd jobs here and there, and then it led me to working for the Law Society of BC, in the late 90s and early 2000s. And again, working in the operations department, and just, tending to day to day type of things, and jobs within the organization.
Okay,
And
I gotta back up a little bit. You never went to college, though? You never mentioned college.
no,
So this seems like a pretty good job with no college
I
education.
didn't graduate high school, right?
You never
So
graduated high school either?
no, I didn't.
Did you get
No,
your GED?
no, no,
No joke.
no, no. I kind of, yeah.
You'd be surprised how often I
Like,
hear
there's
this.
nothing unless you get your education. Yeah, you know what? I was really lucky. Again, like I said, I just, I crossed paths with people who, friends and stuff, and I had this just insatiable work ethic, with with everything I did, right? So people, I think, saw the value of it in me without, a formal education of any, sort.
Wait a
Mind you, I
minute,
was
but if you had this work ethic, it obviously was work ethic that was selective because you didn't work hard enough to graduate from high school.
well, that was it. It's an educational thing, right? Some
Yeah.
of us are hardwired to learn a certain way, and others are just not.
Right.
Um,
Okay. So you
yeah,
just didn't love the whole
I
classroom
just,
format, but you
it
can
didn't.
work when you're
Yeah,
in your element.
absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
I would consider myself to be, uh, you know, um, ignorant, dumb,
No, you don't
uneducated.
come off ignorant or dumb
Oh,
at all. That's the
no,
thing.
no, no.
Yeah.
And thing, right? I mean, for the lack of a better word, right? It's just my mind was completely elsewhere. Like, I was caught up in this kind of creative vortex at a very young age, right? And
But how'd you get
I
away with that with your parents just dropping out of high school?
I was Italian, right? And I mean, they had absolutely zero education, right?
Oh.
Um, yeah, yeah, no, like I said, they came from a very small village, and education was not a luxury that they had, right?
Yeah,
So
but a lot of parents who aren't educated. My parents aren't particularly educated. Neither of them have a college education. And that made them hyper
yeah,
passionate about me getting a college education, even though I
well, and
didn't
that's
finish either. But it
that's
was
it.
like, "Oh, I didn't get it, so you have to have it." But your
Yeah,
parents didn't have
no,
that
I
same
mean,
attitude.
yeah, same attitude. For them, it was, my dad, like, again, I've told this story, and my dad came to Canada with like zero language, right? Zero money, but an incredible will to want to kind of survive. I mean, he had a family, a young family still in Italy. My sister, my mom was pregnant at the time, and he was a cement mason, and landed in the country and managed to uh, get a job, close to where he was staying. And interestingly enough, it was a church, and they were building this brand new church, and they were doing these, I think, travestine floors. I can't even, I'm not sure what the name of the tile is, but they're solid polished concrete.
Travertine? Travertine? Yeah.
So my dad was responsible for making these kind of floor tiles, right?
Oh, he
Um,
made them. So
yeah,
he put them in a kiln and the whole 9.
like what it was basically concrete, exposed to aggregate, right? Basically, cast into 24 by 24-inch forms. Then they would basically hand grind and polish them.
Wow, that's
Yeah, right.
crazy.
Yeah, and the ironic thing is that when my father passed a few years ago, he was buried, and his coffin laid on the floors that he made in that church, right? And so
That's incredible.
it's a great story,
I'm
great
sorry
story.
for your loss, by the
Oh,
way, but that's
thanks.
awesome.
Dad he was 94, and he lived a great life. But yeah, and it's my parents basically instilled that sort of work ethic, or tried to, anyways.
Yeah.
Um, I was a bit of a wild child as a
But
kid,
he
but
just had the attitude like, if you work hard, doesn't matter your education. That was their attitude.
you can't fail, man. You can't fail if you work hard at anything. Zero. If you're willing to work at it, you will succeed one way or another. It'll come back, and you'll reap the rewards of all that hard work. So
And that seems to be more true today than ever. I mean, a lot of jobs are not even looking at college educations anymore. It's
yeah,
wild.
it's kind of, I think you could spend half your life in university and still walk away, and still have about as much chance, as the next person, right? I mean, it
Yeah.
doesn't matter anymore. It's just, if you're lucky enough to have a skill set of some sort going into these particular sorts of, fields, then you can be ahead of the game. But for me
Mhm.
personally, education, schools, it wasn't, it just wasn't my thing. But I was lucky enough to get jobs, and learn and meet people. And again, when I was working for the Law Society, they had a really great corporate office on the upper floors where they'd have meetings, and all of the benchers, from lawyers and what have you, from around the province, would meet every month. And they had this corporate art collection, and they had one big blank wall. And I had enough guts to say, listen, hey, how would you feel about me hanging one of my paintings up there? And they had no idea what I did, like zero, right? I didn't really mention it to anybody. And so they were like, well, what are you talking about? So I brought in my portfolio, which was, a hardcover portfolio at the time, and showed them. And they were like, yeah, no, I think that'd be really great, and so I did. And
And you just
uh,
did it voluntarily. They didn't pay for it or anything.
no, no, just did it voluntarily, and put my little ID card on it, my little info card on it, and it started getting noticed by lawyers and all the higher ups within. And I ended up selling the piece to the Law Society, to um, the current president at the time, who was retiring. So he really loved the painting, so they ended up buying the painting from me, giving it to him as a retirement gift. And I put another one up, and then one day one of the lawyers came up to me and said, "Hey, my wife, we live over in Victoria, which is Victoria, it's over in Vancouver Island, and a friend of ours is opening a gallery in the Oak Bay area, which is a very, very affluent area. It's very wealthy. And would you like us to kind of set up a meeting for you to meet her, right? And maybe you guys can do business together, and she can represent you." And I was like, "Yeah, sure, that'd be great." So they did, and we hit it off. And at that time, I was already in a gallery here on the coast, and we've had a relationship for 30 plus years. This gallery, White Rock Gallery here, and they initially were selling my art prints at the time, right? They used to sell art prints back in the 80s and 90s. So, and they knew that I lived locally, and they started selling my prints. And then she started inquiring about originals, and we started a relationship, and business relationship together, and we managed to maintain it through the gallery ever since. And but this other gallery that I was set up with, the two galleries, between the two of them, right? And it allowed me to basically make a decision that, yeah, it was time for me to leave the Law Society, and you know take a leap of faith in myself, and see if I can actually do this for a living. So, and at the time, I
Wow.
was selling everything, like everything that I produced on a part-time basis was selling, right? The galleries were finding collectors for it, and it was kind of the right work at the right time, right dollars, and people really loved it and related to it. And yeah, so, and it just kind of, it was like a springboard, right? I told myself that
Hmm.
if I could make at least what I was making working for the Law Society, then I was going to be okay, right? So
So how did you calculate that? You were selling literally everything that you paint?
yeah,
So when you calculated your potential income, I'm assuming you asked yourself, okay, what can I paint in a month? How much can I sell each of these paintings for based on past experience? And does that equal the amount of money I'm making a month now?
yeah. I mean, at the time, I wasn't even thinking about, I wasn't even calculating it. For me, it was just, can I sell that painting? Can I sell that painting? Right. And we started out,
Hmm.
we started out, we were smart about it, right? We were really smart about it. And the gallery owner, she'd been in business for a long time, and she understood, like, slow and steady wins the race here, right? You come out of the gates, and you're suddenly popular, and then suddenly you jack your prices way up, right?
Mm, not a
It,
good move.
it's not a good move, right? You're gonna end up just ending your career like real quick, right? So we started out very modestly, and I mean, I was painting anywhere between 60 and 80 paintings a year. Like, I was painting a lot, and
Wow.
yeah, a lot. And but we sold literally every painting. Every painting sold, like
How
every show,
quickly? What kind of turnover rate was it?
like immediately, instantly. Like instantly. I was doing at the time, when I first started. I mean, things would take a few days, a few weeks, right? And then I get the call from the gallery. Yeah, no, we sold it, right? We need more work. And I was like, fantastic, right? And at the end of the first year, I was like, wow, okay, yeah, I met my income that I would have made at the Law Society at the time. So I'm doing okay, right? Like, I'm if I can keep doing this, I'm good, I'm solid, right? And the first year was great. The second year doubled. The third year I don't know, quadrupled. Like
The
it just,
prices?
oh no, just the amount of money, because I was starting to even paint more, right? And
More than
uh,
60 or 80 a year? Wait,
I mean, I started.
were they like the paintings we're looking at in the slideshow right
Oh,
now?
no, no. These are over the last, I'd say, probably 10 years latest, maybe a little bit older on some of them.
So were they
Uh,
smaller and looser? They had to have been smaller
yeah,
and
they were
looser.
smaller. Definitely smaller and loose.
Okay, because I'm like, how can you possibly paint that fast?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
So
that makes more sense.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's you know, one of these things where, and our prices were going up too. I mean, don't get me wrong here, but you know, we would increase our prices like 10% a year, right, for the first little
Right,
while, and
right.
then it jumped up, and then it started to jump up more because I was putting more time and effort into these paintings, right, and they were taking longer, and my production numbers were dropping, and you know, so it's kind of like, you know, that's the scale, right? That's how it works. So
Mhm.
uh, but anyways, yeah, and I never kind of really looked back from that point. I mean, you know, they were finding people, you know, who were willing to buy the work really, really quickly, and like I said, it was just being in the right place, the right time, right,
Well,
and
not just that though. Also being what's a good word for it? Um,
relentless.
yeah, maybe relentless.
Relentless,
Relentless
yeah,
enough to everywhere you worked, you put I mean, from the time you were 10 years old, you were trying to get something on a wall.
yeah, yeah,
You never
absolutely.
just sat and waited for someone to knock on your door.
No, no, you know, I mean,
Yeah.
you know, you make your own luck, right, and
Yeah.
you know, if you're not willing to put the time into it, then yeah, I mean, luck doesn't matter. 'Cause you know, you can't apply you can't apply your hard work to it, right? You can't take
Right.
advantage of these gifts that fall into your lap, right? And I just kind of feel like, yeah, life is just, I've been really lucky in that sense, right? But
Mhm.
I guess maybe I just timed it right. I don't know, but you know, it
Hmm.
just worked up to these opportunities, right? So
How long did
um,
it take you to surpass your income at your highest level in corporate life?
a couple of years,
Couple years from the time you quit.
couple of
Good for
years.
you.
Years, right? So, yeah, you know, it's um, it's doable, right? You know,
Yeah.
if you play your cards right and you're smart and you're patient and you're professional about it, yeah, it's absolutely completely doable. Yeah,
Yeah.
but you got to treat, you know, you have to treat your craft, right? Your business like a business, right? You know, you're an artist, but you're still, you know, you're no different than, you know, electrician or a doctor or anything, right? You have to run your business like a business. You have to be professional about it, right? Um, or at least try to be. And you know, you make sure you put your time in. You just have to, right? So you have to.
Mhm.
You're not going to earn. You're not going to learn. You're not going to do any of those things unless you're willing to put time in front of this, you know, in front of the easel. That's it. You know, end of
Yeah.
story.
And part of being a business owner is making the best product possible.
Yeah, absolutely. For your
Right.
demographic,
It's not a
right?
contradiction. It's not like if you're a great business, you're not a great artist. Because I mean, if you own a bakery, then you better be trying to make the best baked
Right.
goods in the
Yeah,
city,
exactly. Right.
right?
You want people coming through your door, right?
Right.
And you know, I there's trust me, there are some artists out there that just absolutely blow my mind. Young, talented
Oh,
people.
dude, I know.
I know it's just it's
I've had a
astonishing.
few of them on the podcast.
Yeah,
It's
it's astonishing.
mind-blowing.
Yeah. And again, this is the, you know, this is having the drive as an artist, you know, or a creative person, but with the ability to obtain information
Yeah.
way more readily than we were when we were young, right?
Mhm.
It's putting the time in and learning, you know, specific aspects of what they need to learn to do, you know, what they do and create these incredible pieces of artwork. I mean, especially with traditional painting, right? Traditional methods, and
Mhm.
wow, man, there's some seriously talented people out there, like
I know.
serious.
Yeah, you mix aptitude with resources, and it's you're gonna
Yeah,
get some crazy prodigies.
yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely, and the ability to market yourself, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, I mean, we couldn't be having this conversation 20 years ago, right? So
I know, isn't it wild? When I bought this building, this was the farthest thing from my mind. I bought my building that I'm sitting in right now 17 years ago. And I often will sit at my podcast stand. I've got like 5 monitors, all this other techie equipment, and I'm looking at you in Canada, and I've done the same interview I had one in Israel last year, or a couple weeks ago. I've had it in Africa. I've had everywhere, Australia over and over again. There's a lot of Australian artists I've had for some reason. I'm just like 17 years ago when I bought this building, I couldn't even imagine this kind of technology in here. Like, I mean, I envisioned what my career would look like, and it never was sitting in front of this robot talking to someone in Canada with a perfect picture.
yeah,
It's just mind blowing the world we live in. I love it and I hate it. I think the thing I hate about it is just it's easy to get distracted with all the good stuff out there too.
too easy to get distracted, and
Mhm.
that's it's one of those things. And two, it's again, it plays, it plays on you, right? And
Mhm.
it's like we live in this strangely falsified world, right? Of make believe, man, and it's kind of like you know you have to go in understanding that what you're seeing, like with people's lives and just everything around you, it just all seems like this very polished commercial, right? Of what
Yeah.
people want you to believe, right? And you start questioning everything about your own life, right? And it's just wow, yeah, it's a dangerous, it can be a really dangerous and slippery slope, right? And as an artist, professional artist, right? I always kind of remind myself, right? It's about the work. It's not about anything else other than the work. The work speaks volumes, right? And that's all you need is for it to speak for you, right?
Mhm.
I don't need to do any, song and dance to try and push what I'm doing, and I just let the work speak for itself, right? And
Jeez. Wait a minute. So when you said you don't need to do any song and dance,
yeah,
I thought to myself, okay, so I've seen your page many, many times because I've been following you for a while, and you don't. I mean, you have reels and stuff,
yeah, yeah,
but you're not doing this kitschy stuff that everyone does on the reels, like it
yeah, I
kind of.
know.
Frankly, I'm sorry, but it kind of drives me up a wall, especially when you see a grown man like who's like 70-year-old man doing all this
Yeah,
teenage stuff that
yeah.
the algorithm says you have to do to get followers.
Uh,
But then,
this is a funny thing. We talk about the human race, the species, our species,
yeah,
right? Being the most advanced species on the planet. We're the dominant species, but yet we are willing to sit there and do the stupidest stuff
so
online
stupid.
because a computer says, well, if you do this, we've been led to believe that if we do this, we're going to get more people liking us, right?
Oh, it's so
Basically
sad. It makes me
controlling
sad.
controlling our thoughts, controlling what we are willing to do, right?
I
For
know.
popularity, right? And it's like, okay, now who's the most advanced species on this planet again?
I've been doing Jeff's online mentorship program for about a year now, and it is awesome. Everything is online, super streamlined. If you can be there, I mean, you have the ability to talk to him once a week and he can review your work and help you. If you can't be there, it's pre recorded. You can go back and even re-watch things if you missed something during class or couldn't be there. So the online portion of it is almost better than real life because you can always go back to it, which is awesome. The demos are recorded. It's just like all available whenever you need it. And I'm a stay-at-home mom of 4, and my time is limited, and it's also very interrupted. And so to be able to go back has been clutch for me. And you get to work with Jeff HEIN, who's awesome. He's tough. The assignments are simple, but difficult, and they're difficult to make us all better. And he's able to give us these assignments, coach us through it, help us stay excited to progress. And so it's just been a great experience. I am so grateful that he has been willing to take time away from his own art to offer all of us to have it. So if you're thinking about doing it, it's amazing.
To learn more about how you could have me as a personal mentor, check out the link to HEINAtelier.com in the show notes or video description. Yeah, have some
Me
self-respect.
of this, yeah, remind me of this, right? Like, so anyways, yes. So it's yes,
Well,
mostly
here's the
because
thing though. I'm looking at your account and so cuz I'm unwilling to do that crap. It just drives me up a wall. I'm unwilling. Frankly, I don't post enough. I've got like I don't know, 200 posts, less than 200 posts, and I've been on it for 10 years. I just don't I hate social media. But I'm looking at yours and you've got 213,000 followers without all that algorithm crap.
yeah, it's
Dude, your
just
work is you're not doing a song and dance and your work is really pulling in an audience. Congratulations.
yeah, thanks. You know, it's I mean, this was really kind of a big social experiment for me. I mean, you know, you know, Facebook was the big thing back in the day, right?
Yeah.
Focus my energy on Facebook, and someone, you know, uh, said, you you should really try Instagram, and I'm like, I don't know, right?
Yeah.
And and then I thought, okay, well, let's just see how far this reaches, right? And try and do it, you know, honestly, um, and just do your posts. Just do your posts a couple of times a week, and you know, share some of your life, and just keep your keep your personal life, you know, as protected as you can, and just share the good things in your life, and you know, my dog is a good thing, right? You know, and all those good things, and my art, you know, and it's what I do, and I just want to share it and let it, you know, just let it kind of seep out into the ether, and just see where it ends up, and I was, you know, I was really quite surprised at the beginning, like just how quickly and how quickly it escalated into these, you know, really astonishing numbers, right? Like, and how
Yeah.
far it reached. Like, it's just, you know, some of the, I mean, Instagram has changed, you know, the algorithm, right? It's really kind of pulled the reins in of visibility, and it's not like, you know, all your the people that follow your page want, you know, who are genuinely interested in seeing what you're doing, are actually seeing what you're doing, because
They're
again, you know,
not. It's so sad.
this computerized, you know, this computerized kind of technology, or this technology period, is only allowing certain, you know, certain peoples to see these things, and which is really tough, right? It's very hard for business people, because you know, you might be missing half your audience. You may be missing two
Half.
thirds,
Huh. I bet
right?
it's a heck of a lot more than that.
Yeah. So, but I mean,
Yeah.
in the early days, you know, I'd post something, and you know, it would get like two, 300,000 views, right? Like, all within like a few days, and I'd just be like, "Holy smokes! Like, wow! Like, this is really quite astonishing, right?" And then it kind of changed, right?
Yeah.
And you know, it was kind of like, okay, well, clearly this isn't the platform that you think it is. So I still do what I do. I still paint. You know, I try to be, you know, informative, and I mean, I'm not a teacher. Never going to be a teacher. I don't want to be a teacher. I don't have, you know, the capacity to be a teacher. I don't have the experience because I've never taken classes. But you know,
I don't know about that. You're a professional. You just have to know more than your students, and you obviously are gonna. I think
problem
you.
is that a lot of these students know a lot more than I do.
Well,
So
they're not going to sign up for your class, though.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But you know, it's just for me personally, I just it's about painting, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's my it's capturing my own experiences in life, you know, and basically getting it down on, you know, two-dimensional, you know,
Yeah.
surface.
Are you
Just
an introvert? Do you because you're alone all the time, aren't you? If you
yeah,
only painting.
yeah. I mean, it's I would consider myself to be an introvert. You know, I'm very social. Don't get me wrong. You know, I all of my neighbors know who I am, and I love my neighbors, and but I keep to myself, right? You know, I'm not a super social person outside of, you know, um, hellos and goodbyes, and just have a quick conversation or talk cars, or you know, nobody really knows what I do in the neighborhood. There's a few people that do, but I'm just kind of I'm more known as the car guy in the neighborhood. right?
How funny is that?
Yeah, yeah, and, they just they have no idea, like, what I do and,
You
my
could you
experience.
could you could be cooking meth in that house and they wouldn't know.
Yeah, no, until I
I mean,
yeah.
maybe you are. I hope I didn't hit on something that you were trying to hide.
Left a crater in the earth, like, "How do you do it?" No,
I
no,
just outed you in on accident. I didn't even realize
it's one of those things, right? Like, only a very few people and,
it.
those are people following on Instagram, right? They kinda know, my life and that sort of thing, so, um
Yeah. Yeah, well, being an introvert is so not about whether or not you're personal or shy. I got two twins, obviously. That's what twins are.
I
It's
was gonna
two
say,
people.
I thought you
Yeah,
said
I just
that's
had to
what you're
clarify, there are 2
like,
of them.
yeah, wow.
Anyway, it's a girl and a boy, and they're 20 now, but my daughter is, incredibly extroverted, but
Mm,
she's the shy one. And then my son is really outgoing and he's an introvert. In other words, my son is happiest when he's in the mountains by himself with no people around.
yeah, that's like my son, same way.
Yeah. But
He
if you get him in front of people, he's outgoing, he's not shy, he's just not happy that way. But and my daughter, she wants to be around people, but then when she gets around them, oftentimes, I mean, she's not shy, but more than my son, you know? And so that's yeah, being an extrovert really is just your happy place is alone. And it seems like you must be you seem pretty happy. So you must
yeah,
be you must be an
yeah,
introvert. And
I
the reason I ask is I teach and I teach because I have to. I'm not an introvert. If I'm not around people for too long, I'm just like, "Oh, this is not working for me."
yeah.
You
Yeah,
know?
it's one of those things. It is a fine balance, of course, right?
Yeah.
But I don't seek. For me, it's not like I gotta pick up the phone and call my buddy. Hey, let's go and do something, right? My life is busy, like busy between having a career for one,
Yeah.
um, having a dog, having a life outside of my art. But I mean, I've got, in the last few years too, it's like my dad, was ill and taking care of my dad.
Yeah.
And then he passed away and then taking care of my mom, right? Who, by the way, had a heart attack like yesterday morning.
Oh
And
gosh, I'm so
yeah,
sorry. Is she okay?
what it was, yeah, man, this is the beauty of dementia is that she's in the hospital. She has no idea.
She has dementia. It's so
Yeah,
sad.
yeah, so it's and I joke about this, and I was laughing with the doctors
You have
last
to
night.
have humor about this stuff.
The only thing she was concerned about is why they redecorated her home, like the home that she's in, the care home that she's in. It's like, why
Oh,
decorate this? I'm like, Mom, you're actually in the hospital. Why?
oh, does she forget who you are sometimes?
No, no. Her long-term memory, like
Oh,
literally
interesting. Because a
sharp as
lot
a
of dementia people do.
yeah, no, sharp as a tack. It's only her short-term memory. So,
Oh,
yeah, so lucky enough, yeah, I mean, she's 92 and but anyway, it's so life has been very interesting as far as the last 5 years, right? Dealing with sick parents and the illness is not, it's not as such where they're incapacitated and they're in a hospital. No, they're still at home. So, they need people to care for them. And of course, being Italian, this is what you do, right? So you care for your family.
yeah. Or any good human, right?
Exactly. And it's
Well,
anything.
yeah.
Unfortunately, that's not necessarily the way because we see a lot of folks that are, in my mom's care home and they never get visitors. We never see them
Oh, man, that's heartbreaking.
alone, right? And that's sad. It's really sad. So,
It is.
and as a family and as a collective unit, right, we just kind of said, okay, this is what we got to do, and this is our schedules, and we've got to work around them, and
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 all your family is around the home? They live sort of close by?
yeah, we're all like I'm an hour and 15 minutes away from where I grew up, right? So it's a bit
Okay.
of and my brother's the same thing, about an hour out. My sister's a little bit shorter, but
Oh, that's so nice you're nearby. We're
yeah,
all
we're
over the
all
country in in my family.
and that's the unfortunate reality now with life, right?
Yeah.
People are just they're scattered, right? They're all over the place, and being able to communicate like we're communicating now, it's fantastic. But and suddenly someone gets sick and they need your physical help. It's that's a
Yeah.
lot on everybody, right? So,
You know,
but
again, I
anyway,
was in the like I said, you need humor with these kind of things. So I hope I'm not crossing the line here by making fun of, not making fun, by telling this funny story. But I have a friend whose mother had dementia. She's since passed, but he wanted me to go to her home and draw her,
Yeah,
or paint her. So I'm painting her from life. And she's such a sweet old lady. And she was clearly happy, you know, which is like you said, sometimes that's the gift of dementia. You don't know how bad you have it. Right.
yeah, totally.
But it's comical because I sitting in front of her painting her and she'd be wandering like this, and I kid you not, every minute, 2 minutes, she'd be just I'm painting her and she's just put her head down like this and she goes, "Oh, who are you?" And then like 2 minutes later, she'd be like this. She'd go, "Oh, hi. What's
Yeah,
your name?" And then 2 minutes later again, "Oh, hi. What's your name?" Like
yeah.
it went on for 2 hours. And then she started flirting with her son. She's like, "Oh, you're handsome."
Yeah, it's
It was a trip. She was so adorable,
it's
though. Oh my
it's
gosh.
really something. But it's the human brain
Oh,
is
god.
it's a mystery, man. You know, um, it's all of everything that we kind of had to deal with as a family, and just the experiences with my mom and dad. It's really kind of put everything into light or into perspective, right? As far as the importance of life and the importance of things within your life, right? And
Yeah.
sure
Yeah.
all of those things are balanced. And I mean, I spent a lot of my life, focusing on me, my heart, just the things I needed to do as far as my career went. And then as soon as mom and dad got sick, it just really kind of opened my eyes, and it was just kind of like, this this whole thing is just so fleeting, right? Like
Oh, I
it's
know.
happening so fast, right? And I mean, I remember like it was yesterday, my first sales in the gallery, like it was as clear as my the screen in front of me is, right? And suddenly it's like 30 years has gone by, right? 30 years,
Yeah.
whole career, right? So um
And then you look at a picture of yourself from back then and you're like,
yeah, yeah.
What?
And look at all
Like,
that hair.
wait, what happened?" I see pictures of my wife and I, we've been married 27 years, and I sometimes I'll look at a picture of us when we were first married, and I'm just like a little boy, what happened? I didn't, because you don't see it happening.
No.
It's just crazy, and it goes by so fast.
And it's important
Scary.
to understand, just again, it's that mindset of making the very best of every moment you got. Because let me tell you, coming from a guy who's, knocking on the door of 60, man, oh man, did that go by fast. And,
Yeah.
oh man, am I thankful for, all the good fortune I've had in my life. But I think it was the fact that, willing to really, um, not compromise, taking advantage of every minute of it, and to do the very best at what you're doing, right? Or to really try, right? And it's really the only way you make it especially in this business, right? So
Yeah. Yeah, and you just never know when you're gonna step into the street and a bus is gonna take you out either.
absolutely.
I was 20 and I almost died from cancer, and it's or
Right.
21. Yeah, yeah.
Well,
You just never know. You never know when your time is up.
that is way too young to be dealing with that, man.
Yeah, well, it's been almost 30 years, so thank
Yeah.
goodness. But so I've had 30 more good years, but you never know when it's gonna come again, right? So you gotta live your life every day.
The hardships, man, they're what shape you, right? And
Uh-huh.
it's just one of those things where, some people are dealt, those really shitty hands, right? Early in life as yourself, right? But, as tough as that is, and as tough as that was, I mean, how has it changed your perspective at how you look at everything you do every day, right?
Yeah, you know what's sad about it is, I went through the cliche but important. Some cliches they're cliches for a reason because they span humanity, everyone goes through it. But I went through this sense of urgency in my 20s where it's just like, I don't know if I'm going to live very long. I need to just get busy, 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 busy. And it's funny how as time goes on, you start to go back to that feeling of like I've got time, like there is more time. I'm going to be fine. There's more time. And sometimes that freaks me out a little bit. It's like, no, 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 no. That was a good thing that you appreciate every day and that you don't become idle
Yeah.
in every aspect of your life, whether that be social, your relationships, your work, whatever, that you don't just let days slip by without them having some value.
Yeah.
So
Well,
yeah, I
everything.
still I still think I'm there, but not to the degree I was in my 20s.
Yeah. Well,
I'm letting it slip a little. I
how
think
old are you
about
now?
that a lot. I'll be 50 in November.
Yeah, I mean, you're getting to that point where you're starting to look at, things a little bit differently, right?
Yeah.
And it's just, it's when you hit 50, right? It's one of those things, you hear it your whole entire life, right? It's like, ah, yeah, whatever, old man, right? When you're a kid. And then you kind of come to realize it, right? It's like, oh shit, okay, I understand that. I get that, right? Like, you start to see, your friends you grew up with, all that kind of stuff, right? Coming and going, dying, right? Doing all those things. And then you suddenly start to realize the importance and value of time, basically, right?
You know what sucks about getting old? This conversation's going way off in the deep
I'm
end.
sorry. I mean, yeah, no,
No,
this
it's
is
good.
still
It's
not
good.
unrelated, right? I'm
No, it
apologizing.
is. It is because we gotta get busy and we gotta get moving on our art. But and so it's relevant. But what sucks about it, two things. I remember my knees started to hurt because I always loved, being physical, sports and so on. Not if I was never much into organized sports, but I was always very active. And I remember it was like 28. I first started feeling aches and pains. You don't even get your grown up body till you're 21 or something.
Yeah.
And
Well,
then
it's amazing.
7 years later, it's already fallen apart.
Yeah.
7 freaking years.
Yeah.
I've thought about this a lot. I remember people I moved into my neighborhood when I was 30. I bought my first house when I was 30. And I go to church every Sunday in the neighborhood and I remember everyone treating me like I was super young and like I'm one of the young guys in the neighborhood. It's only 20 years later and now I'm one of the old guys.
Yeah.
It's not it's it's crazy how fast it happens.
Yeah.
It's only 20 years. How do you go from the young guy to the old guy? Isn't there an intermediate guy? Like
Yeah. Yeah. The in
I
between
guess
guy.
that's 40. You got like 1 year where you're
Yeah.
intermediate
Wow.
guy. It's
It's,
crazy.
life is, it's an interesting thing, man.
It is. It goes
It's,
so freaking fast. Yeah, you gotta stay busy
by
and
the time you realize, a lot of it, it's too late. It's kind of like, oh, geez, I didn't waste those years doing that, right? So,
seriously, a whole decade
yeah,
could go by and you didn't get anything done. You don't have that. You don't have that luxury of
yeah.
letting that happen.
Let's take this back to art. Let's talk
All right,
art.
all right, all right. Well, let's look at your art. Let's actually go there because I think it's people are probably dying to see your art here. How do you want to do this? You want to go to your website or you want to go to your Instagram? What do you think is going to be the most interesting?
Whatever works for you. I mean,
All right,
the
well,
web.
we're on Instagram now. So let's talk about this palette knife thing. What in the heck?
The palette knife is a tool of necessity, as we're
What
talking.
in the heck? I've never seen this before. I mean, maybe I have. It's not common,
About.
but tell me about this process of using a palette knife as your
You know,
palette.
it's one of those things. I mean, this again, this is the tool of necessity as you get old, right? Like I normally, a lot of artists will have their mixing palettes right in front of them, and I've started doing that only in the last year,
Are
just
you
because.
serious? You just started doing that?
Yeah, I have my table like right beside me, to my right, right.
Oh, that's pretty
So
normal too.
it's an old, computer table that I've converted into my mixing table and that sort of thing, and have all my gear on it. But it's in a position where I've got to kind of do this constantly, right? I'm
Right.
so constantly doing that. And in the last, I don't know, 5, 6 years, I've been really feeling it in my spine. Like I just get really uncomfortable from twisting that way all the time, right? And I make an effort to to do my daily stretches and exercise and all that kind of stuff. But still, it gets to me. And no matter what I do to kind of try to avoid it. So I started actually just doing my mixes and just bringing it up to my palette knife and basically doing my mixes, if I was working in small areas, or just the small details, right? And just working from that just to basically keep my body stationary
Huh,
and,
but what are you doing
stable.
though? Well,
What
what
am
do
I
you
doing?
do? You've only got one mushed up color there. So
Well,
you're
no,
not really
I can.
mixing anything.
No, no, well, I do mix though. If you there's a couple of other videos where I'll introduce, different values, different tones, different hues, right, into that mixture, right? So I'll bring a little bit of white or a little
But do
bit of
you but do you reach over to the side to grab that other hue and then
well,
put
I
it in the
do.
mixture?
Yeah, yeah, I'll do.
Oh, so you just literally are mixing on the palette knife, but you'll grab it off to the side
That's
and
right.
then put it on the palette knife and mix it together.
Yeah, yeah. No, I'm not that insane.
So it's
Yeah.
like a dual
Squeezing out
palette.
little squeezing out little cuts,
That's what
little tiny
that's what I
blobs.
thought you had.
I
That's what
need
I
a
thought
bigger
you might be
palette
do
knife. Yeah. So,
That's funny.
yeah, yeah. So
That makes sense.
yeah, and it's just really easy, right? If I want to lighten, darken something, whatever, right? Just kind of move the value around. I just mix it on the table and just bring it on over to my palette knife, and it's there, right?
Okay, okay.
And again, I just use it for, just for small detail stuff when I'm getting close to the end of
So
painting.
I wanna find a video where you're actually doing it here. Oh, there it is.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's just a painting I've been tinkering away on the
That's
last.
crazy, man. I mean, it makes sense. But
Totally
what you're
easy.
what you're gonna do now that you got this one in front of you, this table in front of you, did you put a little notch in the table for your cane that you're gonna have in a couple years?
Yeah, yeah,
You gotta think ahead.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm hoping to be doing this for the long run, right?
That's
So
the nice thing about being a painter is I mean, I know a guy who died at 95 and he was painting right up till the day before he passed.
yeah, another, yeah, one of my heroes, same thing, right? Canadian
Mhm.
artist named Gordon Smith. And Gordon he was a great painter, just an absolute. He was the epitome of artist, right? He was just it, and saw wars, painted through wars. I think he was commissioned by the government to paint during the war.
Hmm.
Uh, all those things, and he painted until I think just a few days before he died at the age of 99.
Wow.
Gordon was doing shows right up to
That
last
means I
year
could have 50 more years if I could live that long.
ago, right?
That'd be
And
amazing.
Gordon's paintings were big, like big, kind of semi-abstract landscapes that resolved like photographs when you saw them from a distance. He was a great painter, but also
Did his paintings maintain the same level of quality all the way up
I
till
think
99?
probably even better just because of the fact that now it was just very gestural, and
Hmm.
he was kind of um, compounding because of the inability to do any sort of detail work, right? I would think at that age it's very, very difficult to kind of keep steady. But his work was all just a series of lines and dashes. But when you see the work, the landscape, the winter paintings especially, they're just he paints a lot of thicket, right? Like you're looking into a forest and very, very high contrast paintings, snow, a lot of snow. And but when you see them, they're just such amazing, and they're big, like 6 by 8s, right? And
Yeah.
there's a photograph somewhere, I think either on Facebook or Instagram, of him sitting in his wheelchair, up against his easel, and I mean, he can barely keep himself up, but there he is, banging out,
Wow.
right? I mean, it's astonishing, right?
That is
Again,
amazing.
this is the drive of the creative mind, right? It's some people are just, you know, they just can't help themselves. They've just got to be creative, right? So
Hmm.
I'm, I'm hoping to be in that the category as well as
Same here, man. I hope I live a lot longer. There's so much stuff to do.
yeah, there is. So
Huh. Well, okay. So, all right, let's talk about what I initially asked you.
yeah,
So, you're not necessarily a tight painter. I mean, when
no,
you look at them reduced, they feel like they're tight, but then when you really look closely at them, they're really not.
no, they're not. They're very suggestive, and
Yeah.
painterly. It's kind of applying the best of all of my experiences as a painter, from high realism to abstractionism to impressionism to working thin to working thick, right? It's all of those things combined to basically get me where I'm at today, right? And what you're looking at. And I think it all works well, right? It's visually, I think, still very interesting when you look at the originals, right? I mean, I always get people, oh, they look like photographs. It's like, well, you haven't seen my paintings in person, so you
And that's
probably,
always meant as a compliment, you know?
yeah, it is absolutely, and I
Yeah.
take it, right? I mean, it's like, thanks, right? It's relating as I want it to relate,
Yeah.
to the viewer, right?
Some artists get so mad about that. I'm like, "Relax, relax."
Yeah,
It's the only way they know how to compliment you.
that's,
Because I get
yeah,
that compliment all the time too, and I'm like, "Thanks, thanks."
yeah, yeah.
Even though
And
it kinda hurts a little inside.
it's the vernacular of the common
Yeah.
person. It's just it's to them it's like it's
The ultimate
but
goal.
it's the ultimate, right? It's
Yeah,
the
it's like,
ultimate
"Whoa, you
goal.
made it look like a photo."
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. And ultimately, I think it's the process in which the burning hoops you go through to kind of try to achieve these things that where the brilliance shines in it, right? So
Yeah.
and it's just all kinds of mark making, right? Kind of collaborated and brought together and controlled to get to that point, right? So,
So, let's take this painting
yeah,
as an example of this next question for this next question. A lot of your work would be difficult to impossible to photograph without a lot of effort. You might I mean, it could be done, with I mean, you could fix it in post to look like this in Photoshop or whatever. You can, use ND filters or whatever you need to do to make it work, but for the most part, you already said you prefer less information anyway, right?
yeah.
So how much of your work is imaginative? How much are you putting yourself into these things and
I,
either
I,
exaggerating, reducing,
I
changing
would say
lighting?
100%, right?
What? No, that's
A
impossible.
great, well, no, creative license, right? I mean,
Yeah.
a lot of the images that I shoot, I'm not that good of a photographer to go, yeah, I'm going to compose this so it is a perfect image of something I want to paint, right?
Okay.
I take it, I look at it, crop it down, kind of really start to kind of play around with compositional sorts of strengths and failures, and then start thinking about the direction I want to take something. Right. I mean, I think I shot that was actually shot with my drone. I kind of incorporated a drone into my toolbox of things. Right. And really just love having a bird's eye perspective, just
Oh
a
yeah. See, another benefit of living today, right?
of that technology,
Crazy.
absolutely, right? And it's just bringing a modern flavor to a very traditional theme, right? Landscape painting, and but yeah, I mean, I think the original or the initial photo was a lot earlier in the day. It was a lot more, just flat. But
Wait,
what
wait,
was
wait. Earlier in the day, meaning you didn't have a pink sky?
oh no, gosh no,
You made all that up.
yeah, oh, yeah,
Good for
yeah.
you, man.
I
That's
mean, when,
impressive.
this is the thing, right? It's kind of like when you've done this for long enough, right? It's kind of you retain certain aspects of what you see, right? And what drives you or what moves you. And these sorts of low light, sort of low light situations. I mean, to me, they set the mood to what could be a very average, scene on a normal day, right?
Yeah.
It's like I look at half of my paintings and they would be places that you would walk by, drive by, not even take a second look, right? And I just kind of
Yeah.
want to be the voice of those little forgotten, treasures, right? That we take for granted, right? And I mean, it sounds ridiculous and romantic, but it's not,
Doesn't though. It
you know,
doesn't.
it's these are these sweet things in life, right? And
You
you
even
know,
got this haze and whatnot back
yeah,
here.
yeah, you know, it's
Impressive. Yeah, this is the kind of scene where if I were driving down the freeway and I saw this, and you've only got like 3 minutes where it looks like this, right? At the most.
yeah,
I'd photograph it with my phone so I could bring it home and show my wife, and then I'd be like, "Son of a there's no way she's gonna appreciate this. It's not what I'm seeing," The sky will be too bright and the ground will be
yeah,
too dark or something, you know what I mean? Like, this is the kind of scene you gotta go through painstaking efforts to ever capture in photography, and that's amazing. You've just created it.
yeah, 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 yeah. I mean,
Mm.
again, it's artistic license, right? You know,
So convincing, though. So convincing.
oh, well, thanks.
Man, alright, let's go to your website actually, so we get rid of all the writing and whatnot. I think I had it pulled up, didn't I? Oh, I lost it. Alright, it's right here, okay.
Yeah, click the link there, and there you go. So
Yeah. Okay.
scroll on down to available works. Is only there we go. Archives. That's where you'll find some of the good stuff. So.
Okay. God, dude. So, are most of these crazy lighting situations made up?
That one in particular is just some really bad exposure on the photo, but that was kind of driven. Actually, this is very interesting because hang on a second. I'm just going to increase my screen here because I've got it minimized. Beautiful, so I can see what you're doing. This was during the fires. We've had years, or well, the last few years. This year's been we've been really lucky, but past few years, the west coast of Canada has really suffered badly with forest fires and wildfires.
Yeah, you Canadians are doing more pollution than anybody right
Oh,
now.
no, we are, yeah, we're the nicest polluters on the planet, right? We're the
That's
most
what I hear anyway.
polite, yeah, we're the most polite polluters on the planet. So yeah, we've unfortunately just been hammered with these fires, and but this painting in particular, that you're seeing a lot of kind of smoke instilled light there, and um,
Wow.
yeah, it literally what the smoke particles, the particulates in the air, what they would do to light, like early and like not even late in the day. This is not all that late. You get a whole day with this weird kind of pinkish gold hue, right? And as the sun starts setting down towards the horizon a little bit more, that just intensifies. And I was lucky enough to be able to shoot this particular area with like this sort of light naturally happening, right? I've taken again some artistic license to kind of intensify it and the effect of it, but just to strengthen the image itself. But yeah, yeah.
Do you So, if you've seen the podcast, you'll probably know that I want to be a better landscape painter. I'm not experienced with it. I'm more of a figurative painter. Um, so I always have lots of questions for the landscape guests. But I'm wondering, when you modify these paintings, what are your parameters? I mean, what rules? I hate the
Don't make
word
it
rules. I hate the word
don't
rules.
make it suck. That's
Don't
the
make it
rule.
suck. That's it. It's really
Uh,
broad.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, are there things you just can and can't do? Or obviously things you can do, but are
And
things you
there's a
just
fine
can't do?
yeah, I mean there's a fine line of, where you're drawing some of the best elements out of the painting, right? And intensifying it or amplifying it just to kind of, you know, set that mess or punch that message home, right? But there also is limitations to overdoing it, right? And taking something and um, you know, driving it to the point of looking schmaltzy, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
And
that's what I'd be afraid of. I mean, you
yeah, yeah,
haven't done that here. But when I
thanks.
when I mix that color on my palette knife, I would think, "Holy crap, man, am I gonna literally put this cadmium orange in the water right now, like almost straight?"
And
Um,
this
is
is
it
again, these paintings are a lot of what you're seeing too. These kind of visual effects of intense light or harmonious light. are done through glazing, right? I love glazing.
Oh, you're a
Glazing,
glazer. No kidding, really?
big time glazer, yeah. And having the modern mediums, alkyd based mediums such as liquid and uh, Gamblin does a couple of different ones. Neo Miguel,
Do
it's
you
called.
mix those or do you
Yeah.
just stick with
Well,
one?
I
You
use
do.
one or the other, right? I don't like, if I'm starting with one medium, I stick with one medium throughout the whole painting. I don't kind of mix and match just because you don't know what the dry rates are, what the chemical kind of,
Yeah.
those formulas, how they react with one another. So it's kind of like, okay, if you're going to use this, just use that. But those are the mediums that I really love to use because they dry quickly, right?
Yeah.
I literally can treat some of my paintings like in the summertime. I'll go in, lay a glaze down, take the painting, put it under, a Tupperware container and put it outside, and it'll literally be dry, ready for me to paint by the evening. Literally, like,
Wow.
oh yeah,
With
quick.
liquid, I could see that, but even Neo Mag Gulp, you can do that?
Yeah, yeah. It's got a slightly different window of dry time, but it dries quick enough that if you wanted to work on top of it more opaquely, I wouldn't necessarily do another glaze over top of
Yeah,
it.
you
You
melt it.
probably melt through it.
Yeah.
Liquid, you could probably get away with doing that. But
This episode is brought to you in part by Rosemary Brushes. If you're one of my listeners who's a professional artist, you're already using Rosemary brushes. But for the rest of you, come on. Take your work a little more seriously. Stop buying the other brands. It's just not worth it. Every now and then you may get lucky and buy a good brush from another brand, but use the brand that professionals like myself are using. Go to rosemaryandco.com, link in the description or the show notes, and get yourself some quality brushes before your next painting.
yeah, it's astonishing stuff. I mean, back
Mm.
in the day, right? Even 50 years ago, it was kind of one of those things where if you were a glaze painter and you were glazing out paintings, you're having to wait weeks, right? Because you were going to basically eat through that paint film with the solvents, right?
Right.
Um, and so, yeah, nowadays you can really move a lot faster, right?
Yeah.
But that's how I achieve those sorts of things, and it's just, yeah. I mean, it's really the only way I know how to paint those sorts of effects. I know a lot of people go in with beautiful, thick, opaque, brush strokes, and they manage to achieve it, but I just think there's more of a kind of an atmospheric fluidity to it all, if that makes any sense. It's
Yeah.
just you're letting the white of the canvas or the lightest values and tones of the canvas kind of shine through all of those layers, right? And it's just when you put a decent light or even just natural light hits it, it's just like wow, the thing just wakes up and glows, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And there's just certain level of chroma you just can't achieve
achieve it. No,
with
no,
white if you add
no.
white to the paint to lighten it.
No, I mean, and this is again, it's one of my true beliefs is that paint is at its best in its purest, thinnest form, right? You look at any transparent, like red oxide or Purelin red or any of those, and you just kind of do a
Two of
smear.
my favorites.
Yeah,
Those are two of my favorites. Yeah.
a smear across a white canvas, and you just do it in a sense, in a way that is so thin and light. But look at just how intense and beautiful that paint is, right? As soon as you add anything to it, white especially, I mean, it just literally, kills it. It just
Yeah.
flat out, right? You just lose it.
Yeah.
And but again, that being said, right, it's yeah, if you understand the process, then yeah, it can work like magic, right?
You know, the most beautiful red I ever painted was a shawl on a woman's head. And I just wanted it to be so rich and chromatic. So I started with, if I remember right, add yellow light so that I could get the highlights um, without adding white, right? And so I painted this whole thing using CAD yellow light and probably Paralin in the darks. And then I glazed the whole thing with Paralin. Oh my freaking
Berlin red
god.
it
Over
is
top of CAD yellow light, it was just singing. I mean, it was so beautiful.
I did, it's funny, I did a series of fire paintings kind of in this
Mhm.
where the whole back painting or the whole sub painting was all done in, cad yellow, cad oranges, and then basically glazed over the Perlin reds, and it was just like literally you could feel the heat coming off the
I
canvas.
know, it's so incredible.
Yeah, so
That's the
yeah,
beautiful thing about oil painting,
yeah. Well,
which
I mean, you can achieve that with acrylics too, but
you
it's
can. Okay, so that's good. Let's talk about that because I noticed that you do some acrylics. So show me an acrylic. I saw one at some point, but now I'll never find it again.
yeah, go to archive
Sorry, I
works.
lost it. My bad. Is it here? Yeah.
All right, so let's take a look here. I'm just kind of
Because I
quickly look.
couldn't tell the difference between your acrylics and your oils. And that was
Um,
impressive to me.
yeah, the go down. Where is that? Where is that?
So
Where
there's
is
not
that?
a lot of them, is what I'm
There's
getting.
not a ton of them. If you keep scrolling
My
down,
gosh, you're prolific, man.
it's
Holy
like
crap, you got a lot of paintings.
yeah, there's done a lot. Okay, yeah. So any of the close up tree paintings, like the branch
This?
painting,
This acrylic?
that one, there's one below it. There's one down even further that's even better. That kind
This
of
one?
the one no,
This
right
one?
below it. There you go. That's a perfect example right there, right? Of what
That's
you can
acrylic?
do. Yeah. Yeah.
Man, so why acrylic? Well, I mean, when you come into the studio, why do you choose acrylic over oil for a particular
Well,
subject?
for this, just because there's just such an immense amount of textural detail with this, right? Um,
Oh.
and I know what I can do with acrylic and with glazing, and then going back in with opaques and glazing over that
So you're
again. And
glazing with acrylics.
oh yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
didn't know you could do that. I
yeah,
mean, actually, I did know you could do that, but only recently. And
yeah,
so I'm surprised to hear it again because I'm still not actually familiar with the what that looks like. I've never
yeah,
actually put it in practice.
yeah. There's a couple of really good mixes. If you kind of do your research online, um,
Mhm.
you can find some really great acrylic mediums that are a little slower in drying, and um, they just they're not as open as oils by any means, but it allows you a little bit more time, especially if you're working small, right? If you're working big, it can be a real challenge, right? I know guys who, they're constantly misting and doing all that kind of stuff, it makes it just such a time, a time issue, right? And it can be very frustrating. For me, I like working relatively small. There's the areas in which I was doing a lot of glazing. They're small, right?
Mhm.
Back is white, stark white, gesso white actually. And the painting was basically put together in smaller little bits and pieces that I could control and work without
Hmm.
having to too much about time restraints or constraints on it. So
So
yeah.
how do you manage the value shift that acrylic has when
Uh,
it
well,
dries?
it's one of those things, right? You just kind of your brain, I think subconsciously just kind of, it understands that things are going to be darker, right? Immediately.
Yeah.
It's just like, okay, this is going to be a bit darker, so don't be afraid to paint it a little bit lighter, right? And if it's too
Yeah.
light, glaze it down, right? Just put a glaze over it and knock it down just a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Uh, I mean,
Are you married now?
no, no,
No? Okay. But you have been married, so you
I,
probably understand this. I get what you're saying where you get kind of used to it and you kind of know where how it's going to sink in. I'm not that good at that, but I'm better than a lay person. But what's funny as a married person, the opinion that matters to me more than anyone else's is my wife's, right? If
yeah,
she's satisfied or if she's impressed with me, I'm on cloud 9. But
yeah,
it's nearly impossible to have that happen.
yeah. Well,
Like she's the hardest one to impress because I guess I'm too familiar to her. So, but there was one time that we were at a friend's house and there was a chip in the wall, and I was going through. We were picking out paint colors. They invited me over to pick out paint colors because my friends do that with me for some reason, and so I'm there and I'm there with my acrylic palette and I'm just custom mixing colors for all the rooms in their house
yeah,
and which is how I've done in my own house, because that way you don't have to worry about matching the perfect chip or whatever. You just do the perfect color and you give it to the Home Depot guy and he mixes the paint. So I'm there
yeah,
doing that and I'm all done and we walk down the hall and there's a chip on the wall and I've got my acrylic paints right there. And I said, "You want me to fix that?" And it was sort of like a, I don't know, maroon paint color.
Uh,
And, she's like, "Sure." And so her and her husband are standing there and my wife is standing there. And I mixed the maroon, right? But
uh,
I mixed it too light and, I put it on there and all of them start making fun of me and, lighthearted, like, including my
uh,
wife, like, "Oh, nice job. The artist nailed it. Oh," and I'm like, "Guys, just wait."
just wait. The magic's about to happen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just wait a minute. And they're all still making fun of me, still making fun of me. And all of a sudden it just sinks in. Bam, nailed it. I mean, it
Yeah.
disappeared into the wall. I think that was, and my wife was so impressed. I couldn't
Uh,
get her home fast enough to take advantage of her approval. And I was like, this is like the only time in 27 years I've seen my wife that impressed. And I'm like, Jen, do you realize this is what I do for a living every day?
Star.
It
Yeah.
was so funny. She was like, "Oh
Sorry.
my gosh, it's perfect. I can't even see it." I don't the truth is though, I don't it was a fluke accident. I don't think I could do it twice, but I never told her that.
It's I guess when you do, when you're painting in acrylics long enough, right, you understand the nature of
Yeah.
that being. And I mean, I really enjoy painting in acrylics. I just don't do it nearly enough. But I have a feeling that I kind of vowed that this winter, upcoming winter, I'm going to start working more with acrylics. I'm actually going to start doing bigger paintings again this year as well, before the year ends. So um,
Yeah.
I
How
focus a lot of energy on small stuff, and it's like I just need to do some big ones while I physically can do some big ones, right? So
yeah. Wait, so do you use acrylic more on your larger scale work? Is that what you're saying?
no, 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 no.
Oh, oh.
On smaller scale work, right? But
Oh.
I want to start
But this
experimenting with.
isn't small.
No, that's 1872. So I mean, it's not huge, but yeah, I want to try start with some bigger pieces just to see how it complies to
Yeah.
how I right? And then just see what happens, right? And they may fail miserably, or they may be one of those things where it's like, you know what? I think I'm going to start painting more in acrylic than I am in oil, right? Who knows? So
Hmm. So
yeah.
how do you manage the quick drying time and getting nice transitions in the paint?
Well, again, it's a lot of how I work, right? It's one of those things. Unless you're getting these big, open, vast transitions like water or sky, a lot of how I paint is just mark making, small marks, right? Just kind of building those sorts of things up. And and then in the end, basically hit it with a glaze to basically, harmonize it. And laying a glaze down isn't very difficult if you're not having to blend too much, right? And you do all of your gradations or your value gradations on the underpaintings with smaller marks, right? So
Oh. So when you glaze over it, does it even out the subtle
yeah,
variations that you might have had
yeah,
in the lower layer?
absolutely, yeah. And then if you're quick enough and you've got some Q-tips around, you can wipe out highlights and stuff, and,
Oh, you paint with
um,
Q-tips too?
oh yeah, yeah. Q-tips are, they're my fingers and Q-tips, and everybody bugs me because I'm constantly kind of, rubbing back my paintings as I'm going, right? But I always say that, my fingers are the best tool in the box brushes, right? Because I can literally feel exactly what's happening, and if I can smudge out an edge and soften an edge a little bit. But you got to be careful with that. You don't want any open cuts or anything. You don't want paint getting into onto your skin for too long, especially if you're using stuff like lead white or Phoenix white or stuff like
Right.
that. But
Hmm.
yeah, I mean, it's Q-tips are a great tool. But again, they're linty, and it's that stuff gets into everything, and you don't
Mhm.
realize it. You put a varnish down on a painting, and you suddenly have this big, nasty cotton,
Oh,
hairs.
no. And you've experienced that? What do you do then? Take it out with a razor blade or something?
Like that, yeah. So,
Mm.
but, yeah.
Alright, well, let me see
Some
if
some of the some of the interiors as well, like the forest interiors.
like
I've done.
this here
Second,
or
just
this here.
one there. That one is an oil. That one's actually an oil.
Okay. Oh,
Uh,
we're looking for acrylics, is that what you're saying?
looking for acrylics here. That one
Okay.
right. You just missed it. You just missed it. Go on up. Go on up. Go on up some more. Right there. Right. Right. Yeah, you're right on it. No, 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 no.
Oh,
I'm
my
on.
bad.
Sorry, I'm looking at my, I'm looking at my cursor.
Yeah, no, I don't see your cursor.
Okay, no, no, no. Okay, yeah, go. Okay, just go up like three. There. Next one. Go. Okay, now go over to your left. Oh,
Here.
one more. No, one more. One
I'm so
more.
sorry, man.
Down, down, down. Just straight down, right there. Bingo.
Oh,
That's there. You go.
thanks for your help.
I'm sitting there trying to remember on the screen with my
Point
hand.
harder, point harder.
So
That's
that's
yeah, I think that's actually the one I saw, um, that I was surprised it was acrylic.
yeah. And again, it's small dashes and dots and lines and just, it's you get the gradation in the sky in the reflection of the water, and that's done relatively quickly. I know exactly where that's going to be, and then it basically harmonizes the whole lower end of that pond, right? So
Now, how much of this is imagination? It would be
now
really
this is interesting. Well, again, imagination. This is an actual place. This is kind of the refuge. I mean, I call it refuge 'cause my dog, Sam, this is a pond or puddle that he likes to go and take a drink out of when we're walking in this one certain forest. And I remember this one day, it was autumn and things were starting to turn and lots of leaves on the ground and very ruddy in color and very gray. And he went in, had a drink, and then I just kind of stopped for a second. I was like, oh, that's really interesting. When I was looking at all of the leaves kind of decaying inside the water that you could actually see within the windows of the reflections of the trees above, right? And then I thought, oh, this would make a really cool painting. So I quickly drew it out, and then as I was painting it, I was kind of looking back on some of my other reference photos from earlier in the year and just looking at all of the super vibrant mosses that we get out here, and especially in this area. I mean, it is like the quintessential rainforest, right? It really is
Mhm.
just wet and damp and all of those things. And yeah, so I kind of applied earlier season kind of vegetation around it, but still kind of kept the autumn, a lot of the autumn drop in the foliage and stuff like that. And so, yeah, I'd be about a 50-50 on this one.
Wow. Do you ever plein air paint?
Very seldomly,
Really?
unfortunately.
More of a studio guy?
More of a studio guy. And again, it's one of those things where my dog was quite sick a few months ago, and I had to keep a really close eye on him. And it was warm out, and so I kind of just set up my paint box on my sun deck and was just doing a bunch of patio plein air and yeah, I mean, after doing it all, I'm kind of like, why don't I do this more often? It's just so enjoyable, and I just learned so much, right, about color mixing, right? And I just kind of vowed to myself to do a little bit more of it in the fall. I really, really love kind of the overcast days, and just light moves a lot slower. It's a lot more manageable from a painter's perspective, you know. Uh,
Mhm.
and something about the warm shadows and cool light, right? Where you're mixing with whites to get your highlights, right? You're bringing the graying out everything. For me, it makes more sense. It makes more sense. So painting, high chroma, sunny afternoons, strong blues, strong high warm. Those to me I find more difficult, So, and again, you're dealing with time and that sort of thing when you're plein air painting, right? Because you got shadows that are just moving just so rapidly, right? Um, so to
Mm.
answer your question, I will be doing a lot more plein
Good.
air painting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you're so freaking prolific. I don't know how you'd have time for it. To add that, look at this. This is insanity. I mean, I guess this is 40 years, but
Well, that's only about 10 years, really, and
oh
that's
my
only the
gosh, are you
that's,
serious?
yeah, and that's only the larger work. There's another portfolio of nothing but smaller work, and then sculpture as well. So
Oh my
it's
gosh. Well, okay, what is your you must have some sort of I don't know, some sort of a process that keeps you working productively, that keeps you moving paintings
desperation,
through?
desperation, man.
My
Um,
gosh, I don't know how you could paint so many
I,
paintings.
you know, I've literally for the last 10, 12 years, oh, more than that now, probably 15 years, getting close to 20, I should say. Um, my galleries were really, they were really proactive to keep me um, doing shows. So I would do a show or two every year.
With
Um,
how many paintings in it?
Usually anywhere between 20 and 25 paintings.
So you're still doing 50 paintings a year on
Oh,
some
yeah,
years.
yeah, yeah.
50?
I'll still do 50 paintings this year, and I've taken most of the summer off. Just, well, maybe not quite that. This last year, I really kind of
So you're
slowed down.
basically doing about one a week.
Basically, yeah, yeah,
One a week.
yeah.
And that's
My job, man. It's
well,
my
I
job.
know, but a lot of people can't paint that much. All right, so some of them are small though, 12 by 12. That's not
I,
big.
yeah, I really focus a lot of energy on smaller work, right?
You do? Okay. So that makes a little more sense
That's
then.
13, 15, 12, 12
Man,
too,
that is a
right?
lot of information for a 12 by
There's
12.
there's that, and that's again, that's another one of my things, right? I can really love being able to create these huge, vast spaces within very
Oh, they're
small.
all small. I had no idea. Now it's
Yeah,
making sense.
yeah,
Okay. Okay. But it's still impressive. Don't get me
yeah,
wrong. But
yeah. It's yeah, they're quite relatively
oh, you
small.
forgot the size on this one. What
Yeah,
is
well, 9 by 12 probably.
9 by
Right.
12? Oh
So
my
I mean,
gosh, I had no
I'll show you
idea.
some bigger work if you hang on a
Yeah,
sec
let's
here.
see what is big.
Big for me, let's say 48 is a pretty substantial
Oh, this
painting. I
one's
could
small too? That's
that
8
was
by 16?
yeah,
They're so small.
yeah, yeah.
Holy
It's
cow.
shocking. I lost my eyesight. If you go to the very top left there, flotilla. I think I sent you one of those. No,
Top left.
oh no, you're right on it right now, right, or actually right below that on your thumb. There you go. There you go. That's a 48. So that's a bigger painting.
Wow. So what would a 48 how long would that take you? Like a month or
That's
something?
a better month. Yeah, that's kind of the in between painting where I'm working on a whack of small stuff as well, and kind of just chiseling away at that one.
And what's more lucrative for you? 4 small painting sales or 1 big painting sale?
Totally depends. Depending, I mean, if you're looking at time, probably the smaller pieces,
Oh, yeah.
right? Right? A larger painting like that, I mean,
You
that's
can't
getting
charge
up.
4 times the price.
You know,
Mhm.
I mean, that's a 30 plus $1,000 painting, right?
Right, right.
Which, in the grand
Okay,
scheme of
so
things,
those little ones are
today's
10.
economy. No, no, no. Those small ones, anywhere they start anywhere from about, I don't know, 25, 28, depending, 2,800, right?
Okay.
Yeah, and then just kind of go up there. Like I'm trying to do bodies of work. And again, this has just kind of been my business approach to being an artist, is being able to create work that is collectible by the masses, right? Like, I want Joe Guy down the street who is a plumber, or, who really loves a painting and goes, hey, you know what, I can afford that, right? And is able to buy a piece of work, right? And start collecting. I mean, it may not be a very big piece, but he's still buying a piece of art,
Yeah.
right? And then you get the more serious collectors who are spending the tens of thousands of dollars, you know, picking up larger pieces. I don't do them very often because they are a very big commitment of time, um, and they can be frustrating. It's like any.
Mhm.
So, um, but
Huh.
yeah,
I had no idea these were so small.
that one's a bit
Oh,
bigger.
that's a
That's
big one. Okay. I
yeah,
think I saw you painting on this one at some point.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
That's
This
wild.
as your cursors are going down here. If you go up, that's another 48. If you just go kind of straight up, one more, keep going, keep going. Okay, to your right there. Nope, other way. There you go, the black and white. And that's a 48 as well,
That is a
right?
sick cloud right there. That is too cool.
And that's exactly, I'm not kidding you, other than the fact that I've added the, body of water underneath it as just a compositional sort of aid, right?
Yeah.
Visual aid to make it a little bit more interesting. That was literally shot as I was driving down the road, of like a field, it's a fallow field during winter, right? And this huge cloud mass came over the mountain, and, just thought driving literally and shot it as I was driving and got it home. I was like, wow, this is really quite something. And of course, using artistic license and really kind of skewing the values in it and diminishing the color and, um, and just kind of working within the realm of being creative with it, came up with that, right? So
Do you
it's
use
far more,
do you use black in your palette?
no, no,
Not at
very,
all. So you're
no,
mixing these grays with
yeah,
chromatic colors.
yeah, it's usually like blue brown based sorts of mixes, and sometimes I'll go in with like phthalo or Prussian blue, which is, I mean, this stuff is just like dangerously powerful, pigment,
Mhm.
and then just mixing it with browns or like Van Dyke brown. Gamblins Van Dyke brown is quite a nice brown. It's almost black, but it's like a really warm black, So
Yeah. Well, I guess technically isn't Van Dyke brown black and red mixed into the tube?
something like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not
Huh.
sure what it is, but yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Someone will have to let us know, but I for some reason I thought it was a mixture of two colors, black and certain red.
Yeah.
Man. Okay, so another question I have for you. You obviously, like I've said 1,000 times now, you're very prolific and you obviously have a relationship with photography. So just based on your painting count, your photography reference count must be huge.
I think I'm at about 38,000 photographs in my
Oh, so I
reference.
was right. Okay, so how do you organize those things?
Yeah, this is the very strange thing about the human brain. I can literally look at something and go, you know what, that photo from like 1997 or 2017. I remember where I was. Hang on, let me just go into my yearly album and I'll find this. Right. I can
Wow.
literally remember where stuff is in my folders. And the real, gems that I know, like I'll photograph a certain rock. And it'll be like, I know that top edge. I'm going to need the top edge of this rock one
And I
day.
photographed it in 2002. You're going to remember that.
And I'll put it into my rock folder. Right? So I have probably about a dozen different folders categorized as, sky, right? Rock, grass, water reflection with rock, like all of these different things where it's like if I'm struggling with anything in my painting, I'll go,
Mm,
okay, I need to see this. I need to see this, right? And I really like to keep it organic in the sense that this is what I shot. I don't want to see somebody else's photograph of this. I want to see what I saw, right?
right.
My own experience of this, right? Because I remember what it looks like. I remember what it, the chroma of it, right? Exactly. I mean, cameras have this way of really kind of messing around with values, hues. I mean, they're designed to bring the very best of a photograph of at the expense of the reality of
Especially now with
it
digital
now.
photography. Yeah.
I'm lucky enough to have a strong enough memory with some of my photographs to know, like, okay, no, I know that wasn't that yellow or that wasn't that green. Right? So
Do you have a generally good memory or is it just with this sort of stuff?
with this sort of stuff, I mean, I always tell myself that I don't, and I'm finding as I'm getting older that the the space for new information might be shrinking, right?
Yeah.
Uh, it'd be nice to be able to defrag your brain and get rid of the stuff that you don't really want to think about again to make space for new. But
Mm.
as far as my memories go, yeah, I mean, I'm great with song lyrics. Let me tell
Are you
you,
really?
song lyrics from the '80s and '90s. Yeah,
That's
uh,
funny.
yeah, and but yeah, with imagery as well, right? I have this kind of acute ability um, to remember things that I've
Mm.
thought. So
But it's weird how your memory is so compartmentalized because I
yeah.
have this freakish ability to remember exactly what I spent on something 20 years ago. Like how much everything I've bought costs.
And your father coming out in you,
I
yeah,
don't know what it's not because I'm frugal. It's just I have a thing with numbers. But names,
yeah.
forget about it. I don't know why, but I could
Faces.
tell you.
I kid you not, faces. I'm the names. I'm a little sketchy with names too.
Yeah.
Faces. It's like I have this weird kind of ability to see people, and I did this not long ago. I went and bought a new vehicle, and I was at the dealership, and this dude came up to me, and I mean, I've not been in school for 40 years, right? And I just looked at him, and he's a 60-year-old guy, and last time I saw him, he was 17. I just looked
Wow.
at him. I was like, "Hey, you went to Gladstone?" And he's like, "What?" And I said, "Yeah, your name's Ken, right?" He's like, "Yeah." He goes, "Who are you?" Right? And I said to him, right? He's like, "How in the hell did how did you figure that out?" And I says, "Well, it's kind of my job, right? I do nothing but look at things all day long, right? And just analyze everything I see, right? So these little tiny kind of distinguishable features and cues within his gestures and face and just I could still see it as he was when he was a young guy, right? But I'm the same way with imagery as you are with numbers. So,
Yeah. I think a lot of us with as artists are
yeah,
that
I mean,
way. Yeah. You know what's funny? One of my pet peeves as a portrait artist, pet peeve's probably a strong word. But one of the things I find interesting and and sometimes a little strange is how the layperson will think that a child of the same gender looks like the parent of that gender, regardless of what they actually look like.
yeah.
Like take my kids for example. My daughter she looks just like me, but
So you
because
think?
what's that?
So you think,
No, she
right?
definitely does. I could put her in Photoshop. I've done it before to prove to people. I put her in Photoshop, put a goatee on her, and it's like, what the, like, whoa.
Yeah.
But because she's a girl, she looks nothing like my wife, dude. Nothing like my wife. But because she's a girl, everyone always says, "Oh my
She looks
gosh, you're a
good.
little Jen." I'm like, she looks nothing like my wife.
There's goatee on, yeah.
But my
Yeah.
sons look like my wife. My son Chase looks like my wife. His eyes are closer together like hers and various things. And everyone's like, "Oh my gosh, he looks just like you." And I'm like, "Oh, brother."
Yeah. It's funny. Yeah. It's my
Do you
son.
even see faces? Do you even
Yeah,
see them?
exactly. Right. My son's the same thing. Like, I think it's the perception of how I see my son. Maybe I see myself in him, right?
Right.
And yeah, and I look at him and I think, God, you were just like the spitting image of me. And then my mom, she'll go, no, he looks totally like his mother, right? I'm like, really? And then when I really take a look at him, I'm like, yeah, she's totally right.
Oh,
He
so
looks,
you're like the layperson.
yeah, I'm like, he looks nothing like me, right?
That's
So,
funny. Well, it might be the portrait artist in me because I'm analyzing the shape of her nose, the shape of her mouth, the shapes of and maybe I'm over analyzing faces, but anyway.
so
Yeah, the human brain is crazy complicated. Well, this has been fun, man. I think we've been at this so well over 2 hours. I have no idea how long because I stopped it once, but I'm guessing we're at 2.5 hours, so we should probably wrap up. But
yeah, I hope it works out for you.
I think it's a good one, man.
it's hard to focus on where I'm staring because you're off kind of the side. So I'm constantly staring kind of off. So if I seem off,
Oh,
kind
that's
of,
okay. Don't worry about it. Well, hey, so the question I always ask everyone at the end is if you could give one piece of advice to an aspiring young artist, or doesn't have to be a young artist, aspiring artist that you had or wish you had, what would it be?
oh goodness, I've been asked this and I still have a difficult time answering it.
Well, you're
You know,
self-taught, which makes it
uh,
tricky a little bit, at least
it's
with the advice you've had, because you probably haven't had a lot of advice.
yeah, no, it's kind of one of those things where, if you see guys like me, right, who have gone and made a career of, being an artist. And I'd like to think that I've seen um, some success in it. Um, if you simply, kind of apply yourself, right? If you simply apply yourself, it's good things will happen. They just do, right? It doesn't matter how much information you're retaining. It's the act of actually painting that will make the biggest difference to you in your life as an artist, right? Because it's only when you're mixing do you see the mistakes that you're making, right? You can watch somebody do this on a video, read it in a book. you'll never experience exactly the nuances of all the tools in your craft unless you're handling them yourself, right? And it's like, don't talk to anybody about anything to do with art or advice until you you know squeak out 100 paintings. Like, paint 100 paintings and tell me how you feel, or about, how you feel about what you're doing now as opposed to what you were doing then, and how much you actually learned through the experience of painting as opposed to the experience of asking, right? So,
Yeah, that's good advice. You
yeah, I mean,
know
it's,
Oh,
it's
go ahead.
basic advice, right? You just, yeah, I
Just
mean, you
do. Just do.
just
Stop
do
thinking about it and do. Well,
that.
one thing you said was, you're not gonna learn by just watching someone do it, right?
Exactly.
And that's obviously true to a point. You can learn some things, but one thing you can't learn is something that I learned by watching myself paint. So I did a video of myself painting. My first video I did of myself painting way back in the early 2000s. And it was surreal to watch the video back and see my own hand moving, but not having my head in it. In other words, I saw the let's say magic, for lack of a better word, happening on the canvas, but I wasn't thinking all the thoughts that it took to put that paint on the canvas. I was just watching it happen. And that's the thing that people don't realize when they watch other artists paint. Most of what's happening is in the head of the artist.
Absolutely.
And there's no way to learn that unless you become the head of the artist. Like, you can't see it in a demo video. You're only seeing their hands.
Yeah.
You're not seeing their head. You're not seeing in their head their thoughts, the problem solving, the agony, the struggle,
This
you
is it. I
know?
mean, we deal with issues of, self-criticism in, just kind of the worst ways. And it can be very destructive, right?
Yeah.
And very so I mean, it can literally shoot you right off the rails, right?
Yeah.
Um, and I do this, 40-year career, 40 plus year career, right? And I still do it to myself, and it's completely human, and it's completely, normal to do it. And what I do when I get into that funk where it's kind of weird, right? You're like, oh, I'm just not doing anything good anymore, and blah blah blah, right? I just don't think I can do this anymore. Go back into your portfolio and just take a good long look at what you've done, right? And what you've created, good or bad, right? And try and tell me that you're not at least better than you were, for one,
Mhm. Mhm.
but how good you actually were then as well. And who was telling you that you weren't?
Right.
Just you. You were telling yourself that, right? So it's like, have a little confidence in yourself. And trust me, if you just keep painting, you will keep getting better.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with being inspired by people that you love, right? Like being, artists that just move you, right? I mean, I'm still flipping open books and going, wow, this is, Gerhard Richter, right? It's just, I look at some of his earlier works and his landscape pieces, and I'm just like, God, that is just, it's gorgeous, right? Like, there's just something magical about this. It's simple, but what is it that speaks to me about this, right? And looking at it and dissecting it and not copying it, but being inspired to move it further and apply it to my own sorts of ideas, right?
Yeah.
But what is the magic in that? Where, and how can I learn from that, right? But not, and just picking up a brush and just start messing around, right? And to see where those inspirations take you, right? So,
Mhm. Yeah. That's great. I appreciate that. Man, it's been an honor to have you on the show and
yeah,
get
well,
to know you a little bit.
honor's mine, man. I appreciate you reaching out and asking. Right? I don't do many of these interviews, and it's just, again, I'm a bit of a, guy that hides in this shell, but it's nice to talk to the others, right? So,
Yeah, well, a lot of more people are going to get to know you, so it's a blessing for all of us. Thanks again, man.
thank you, thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to the Undraped Artist Podcast. If you enjoyed it, subscribe. And if you could, leave a comment or review. That really helps the channel. Please share the show with your friends, and if you're feeling generous, consider a monthly donation at theundrapedartist.com. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you next week.